He was known as the man who felt nothing until one fearless woman walked into his life and refused to look away. But when enemies from his brutal past discovered his weakness, she became the target in a deadly game of power, betrayal, and blood. Now he must choose: protect the empire he built with ruthless hands, or risk everything to save the only person who ever made him feel human. This is the story of a frozen heart set on fire, and the war that followed. Don't forget to like this video and comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far this story reaches. Now let's begin. Ethan Cade didn't believe in accidents. In his world, every movement was calculated, every handshake measured, every word weighed for advantage. At 32, he had already built an empire most men spent lifetimes chasing. Real estate holdings across 3 continents, technology patents that generated millions in passive income, and a private network of influence that stretched from Wall Street boardrooms to the kinds of rooms that didn't appear on building directories. People whispered about Ethan Cade in the same breath they used for natural disasters. Inevitable, devastating, impossible to control. He preferred it that way. The Cade Industries Tower in downtown Manhattan rose 73 stories, all glass and steel and cold ambition. Ethan's office occupied the entire top floor, a study in minimalism and control. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city like a general surveying conquered territory. Everything in that space, from the custom Italian furniture to the temperature permanently set at 68 degrees, existed exactly as Ethan wanted it. Control was everything. Control was survival. He'd learned that lesson young, learned it in ways that left scars no one could see but everyone sensed. The boy who'd grown up in foster homes, bouncing between families that saw him as a paycheck or a burden, had died somewhere along the way. The man who replaced him felt nothing, wanted nothing, needed no one. Or so he'd believed. It was a Tuesday in late September when Maya Brooks walked into his life, though walked didn't quite capture it. She crashed in, really, in the way only genuinely unintentional chaos could manage. Ethan was crossing the main lobby, heading toward the executive elevators with his usual purposeful stride. His assistant, David, trailed 3 steps behind, rattling off the afternoon schedule. Ethan wasn't really listening. He'd already reviewed the meetings that morning and committed every detail to memory. David's verbal recap was more ritual than necessity, a way to make the assistant feel useful. The Singapore team confirms they're ready to move forward with the acquisition, David was saying. Legal says the contracts will be ready by... The elevator doors opened just as someone rounded the corner from the hallway at full speed, arms loaded with what looked like an entire filing cabinet's worth of documents. The collision was spectacular. Papers exploded into the air like startled birds. File folders hit the marble floor with wet slaps. The woman, small, dark-haired, wearing a blazer that looked slept in, and heels that had clearly been a terrible choice that morning, went stumbling forward, barely catching herself on the elevator's doorframe. The entire lobby went silent. People froze mid-step, conversations dying on tongues. Everyone who worked in this building knew the rules. You didn't approach Ethan Cade unless summoned. You didn't speak to him unless spoken to. You certainly didn't crash into him like a human wrecking ball. Ethan looked down at the disaster zone of scattered documents now covering his Italian leather shoes. Then he looked up at the woman who'd caused it. She was already on her knees, frantically gathering papers with shaking hands, muttering under her breath. No, not today, not now. Perhaps, Ethan said, his voice cutting through the lobby's silence like a blade, you should watch where you're going. The woman's hands stilled. Then, slowly, she looked up. And that's when it happened. Most people, when they met Ethan's eyes, looked away immediately. They sensed the ice there, the complete absence of warmth or mercy, and their instincts screamed at them to retreat. It was a reaction he'd spent years cultivating, a tool as useful as any weapon. But this woman, this girl, really, she couldn't have been more than 24, met his gaze directly. Her eyes were brown, almost black in the lobby's harsh lighting, and they held something he hadn't seen in years. No fear, just annoyance. I was watching where I was going, she said, still on her knees in a spreading puddle of documents, until someone decided to stop directly in front of the elevator without warning. David made a strangled sound. Somewhere behind them, someone gasped. Ethan felt something shift in his chest, something he couldn't immediately identify. It had been so long since anyone had challenged him, even in something so trivial, that the sensation was almost foreign. You're blaming me, he said slowly, for your inability to navigate a hallway. I'm blaming you, she corrected, gathering more papers with quick, efficient movements, for not paying attention to your surroundings. But sure, we can go with your version if it makes you feel better. She said it without malice, without calculation, just honest frustration from someone having a spectacularly bad day and no longer caring about consequences. Ethan crouched down, and the movement was so unexpected that the woman actually leaned back slightly, wariness finally entering her expression. He picked up one of the folders at his feet, glancing at the tab. Quarterly Analytics Report, third quarter projections. His eyes flicked to her face. You're an intern. It wasn't a question. Interns were the only ones who still dealt with physical copies of reports everyone else had digitized years ago. Some ridiculous initiative by HR about learning the fundamentals. Observant, the woman said, snatching the folder from his hand with more force than necessary. Gold star for you. This time David actually whimpered, but Ethan found himself almost amused. The emotion was so rusty, so unused, that it took him a moment to recognize it. What's your name? He asked. She paused in her frantic gathering, looking at him with clear suspicion. Why? Because I'm asking. Maya Brooks. She said it like a challenge, like she was daring him to do something with the information. Then her eyes narrowed. Wait, you're Ethan Cade, aren't you? Most people know that before they run into me. Most people probably schedule appointments. She shoved the last of the papers into a messy pile and stood up, wobbling slightly on her heels. She was short. The top of her head barely reached his shoulder, but she held herself like she was ready to go another round. I'm late for a meeting. If we're done with the blame game, I need to go fix this disaster. She turned toward the stairs, apparently not trusting the elevator after their collision, and made it exactly 3 steps before Ethan spoke again. Those reports are going to the wrong department. Maya stopped, turned. Excuse me? Third quarter analytics. Ethan nodded at the mess in her arms. They're supposed to go to strategic planning on 47, but someone's sending you to finance on 32. Finance already has their copies. You're wasting your time. She stared at him. How do you possibly know that? I know everything that happens in this building. He straightened his cuffs, already losing interest. You're welcome to ignore me. I'm sure your supervisor will enjoy explaining the mistake. He could see the war happening on her face, pride versus pragmatism. It lasted about 3 seconds. 47? She asked grudgingly. Strategic planning, corner office. Ask for Jennifer Maris. Maya shifted the papers in her arms, and for just a moment something that might have been gratitude flickered across her face. Thanks. Then she was gone, disappearing into the stairwell with her disaster pile of documents and terrible heels. The lobby slowly came back to life, conversations resuming in careful whispers. David appeared at Ethan's elbow, looking like he'd aged 5 years in 5 minutes. Sir, David said carefully, should I have security? No. Ethan stepped into the elevator, pressing the button for 73. Find out who she is, background, education, who sponsored her internship, everything. Of course. Although she did say her name was everything, David. The elevator doors closed on David's nervous nod. Ethan rode up in silence, watching the city shrink below him through the glass wall. He should have been thinking about the Singapore acquisition, or the afternoon's meetings, or any of the 1,000 details that demanded his attention. Instead, he kept seeing brown eyes that refused to look away. It meant nothing, he told himself. A momentary curiosity, nothing more. By tomorrow he wouldn't even remember the incident. But that night, alone in his penthouse apartment with its perfect view and perfect silence, Ethan found himself thinking about a fearless intern who'd looked at him like he was just another obstacle in her already difficult day. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, he smiled. Maya Brooks had exactly $37 in her checking account, a maxed-out credit card, and a studio apartment in Queens that smelled permanently of the Thai restaurant downstairs. The internship at Cade Industries paid barely enough to cover subway fare and ramen, but it was supposed to be her ticket out, 6 months of brutal hours and corporate hazing in exchange for a line on her resume that would open doors, if she didn't get fired first. You ran into Ethan Cade, her roommate and best friend Zoe, said for the 15th time that night. She was lying on Maya's bed, which was also Maya's couch, which was also Maya's dining table in the 400-square-foot space Maya called home. You literally crashed into the most powerful man in the city and then argued with him. I didn't argue, Maya said, typing frantically on her laptop. She had 3 reports due by morning, and only one was halfway done. I stated facts. There's a difference. You told him to pay attention to his surroundings. He should. Zoe threw a pillow at her. You're insane. You know that, right? People get fired for making eye contact with that man. You practically called him an idiot. I didn't call him anything. Maya saved her document and reached for her coffee, which had gone cold an hour ago. She drank it anyway. Besides, he helped me. Told me I was taking the reports to the wrong floor. Probably so he could remember your name when he has security escort you out tomorrow. Maya had worried about the same thing, but she wasn't about to admit it. It's fine. He's probably already forgotten about it. Men like that don't waste time thinking about interns. She was wrong. The next morning, Maya arrived at 6:30. She always came in early, using the quiet hours to catch up on work and avoid the worst of her supervisor's attention. Margaret Chen ran the intern program like a military boot camp, and she had a special talent for spotting weakness. Maya was halfway through her second coffee when her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown internal extension. Report to 73 at 8 a.m. Don't be late. Her stomach dropped. Floor 73. Ethan Cade's floor. Okay, she muttered to herself, staring at her phone. Okay, this is fine. Maybe it's not him. Maybe it's his assistant. Maybe they need someone to organize files or pick up dry cleaning or talking to yourself again? Maya jumped, nearly spilling coffee across her keyboard. James Park, one of the other interns, leaned against her cubicle with his usual smirk. He was good-looking in an obvious way, all-expensive haircut and whiter-than-white teeth, and he never let anyone forget that his father sat on the board of directors. What do you want, James? Heard you had an interesting encounter yesterday. He picked up the stress ball from her desk, tossing it between his hands. With Ethan Cade himself, that true? Word traveled fast in this building. I spilled some papers. It wasn't a big deal. That's not what I heard. I heard you got into it with him, told him off. I didn't tell him off. We barely spoke. James leaned closer, and Maya caught the smell of expensive cologne. Look, I'm going to give you some advice, Brooks. Free of charge. Men like Ethan Cade, they don't forget insults. They collect them, store them up until they can use them. He dropped the stress ball back on her desk. Watch your back. He walked away before Maya could respond, leaving her staring at the message on her phone. At 7:55, she stepped into the executive elevator, alone. The ride to the 73rd floor felt like it took hours. The doors opened onto a space that looked nothing like the crowded, chaotic floors below. Everything here was quiet, elegant, expensive. A receptionist sat at a curved desk that probably cost more than Maya's entire education. Maya Brooks, Maya said, hating how small her voice sounded. I was told to report here at 8. The receptionist, a woman in her 40s with perfect posture and perfect hair, nodded once. Mr. Cade is expecting you. Through those doors, down the hall, last office on the right. Maya's hands were sweating. She wiped them on her skirt as she walked, her heels clicking too loudly on the marble floor. The hallway seemed to stretch forever, lined with abstract art that probably had 7-figure price tags. The last office on the right had double doors, both standing open. Maya stopped in the doorway, and her breath caught. The office was enormous, but that wasn't what struck her. It was the view. Wall-to-wall windows overlooking Manhattan, the city spread out like Ethan Cade owned every inch of it, which, from what Maya had heard, wasn't far from the truth. Ethan stood at the window, hands in his pockets, looking out over his domain. He didn't turn when she entered, didn't acknowledge her presence at all. Maya waited. 5 seconds. 10. 30. Finally, she cleared her throat. You wanted to see me? Close the door. It wasn't a request. Maya closed the door, very aware that she was now alone with a man who could end her career with a phone call. Ethan turned, and Maya was struck again by how utterly cold he looked. He was handsome in a severe way. Sharp cheekbones, steel gray eyes, dark hair cut precisely. He wore his suit like armor, and his expression gave away absolutely nothing. Maya Brooks, he said, and hearing her name in that voice sent an odd shiver down her spine. 24. Originally from Chicago. Graduated from NYU last year with a degree in business analytics. Top of your class. Turned down 3 job offers to take an unpaid internship here. His eyes locked onto hers. Interesting choice. Maya forced herself to hold his gaze. Cade Industries looks better on a resume. True, but you could have started at those other companies immediately with actual salaries. Instead, you chose to spend 6 months making copies and fetching coffee. He tilted his head slightly. Why? Because in 5 years, those other companies won't matter. But 5 years at a firm that started here? Maya lifted her chin. That opens every door. Something flickered in Ethan's expression, too quick to identify. Ambitious. Realistic. Most people don't have the luxury of turning down paychecks for resume lines. Most people don't work 3 jobs to save enough to take the risk. It was true. Maya had spent her last year of college working herself half to death, tutoring, waitressing, freelance data analysis, all to build enough of a cushion to survive 6 months in New York with no income. It still wasn't enough, not really, but she'd make it work. She always did. Ethan moved to his desk, and Maya noticed he walked like a predator, smooth, controlled, dangerous. He picked up a file folder, flipping it open. Your work has been noted, he said. The analysis you did on the Meridian account last week. You found a discrepancy no one else caught. Maya blinked. She'd stayed until midnight working on that report, triple-checking her numbers because she couldn't afford mistakes. She'd submitted it directly to Margaret, never expecting anyone higher up to actually read it. It was just an inconsistency in the revenue projections, she said carefully. Someone had used the wrong growth model. That inconsistency would have cost us $4 million if it had gone unnoticed. Ethan closed the file. You saved this company money. That deserves recognition. Maya's heart was pounding. Thank you. I'm moving you out of the intern pool. The words hit her like cold water. What? You'll be working directly with the strategic planning team. Jennifer Maris will be your supervisor. Your salary will be adjusted accordingly, $65,000 to start, with performance reviews every quarter. Maya couldn't breathe. $65,000. That was more than she'd hoped to make in her first real job, and he was offering it to her now, 5 months before her internship even ended. I don't understand, she said. Why? Because you're wasting your time filing reports that any first-year assistant could handle. Because you have a mind for patterns and you're not afraid to speak up when you see problems. Ethan's eyes hadn't left her face. And because I don't like seeing talent buried in a program designed to weed out the weak. Maya should have been grateful, should have been thanking him, accepting immediately. Instead, she heard herself say, Is this because I ran into you yesterday? The question hung in the air between them. Ethan's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. Do you think I make business decisions based on hallway collisions? I don't know. I don't know you. No, he agreed. You don't. So why? Maya pressed. Why pull me out of the program now? Why not wait until the internship ends, see my final reviews? Because I've already seen what I need to see. He moved around the desk, and suddenly he was much closer, close enough that Maya could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive. You have a choice, Miss Brooks. Accept the position or finish out your internship in the program. Either way, you'll succeed here. The only question is how fast. Maya's mind raced. Every instinct she had screamed that this was too easy, too convenient. Men like Ethan Cade didn't hand out opportunities unless there was something in it for them. But $65,000, a real position, an escape from the intern program's grinding misery. I accept, she said. Good. You start Monday. Jennifer will send you the details. Ethan returned to his desk, already looking at something on his computer screen. The dismissal was clear. Maya turned to leave, but at the door she paused. Mr. Cade? Yes? Thank you for the opportunity. He didn't look up. Don't thank me. Prove you deserve it, Todd. Maya's new position changed everything and nothing. The work was better. Actual analysis instead of mindless filing, projects that challenged her instead of wasting her time. Jennifer Maris turned out to be brilliant and demanding in equal measure, expecting perfection but willing to teach. The salary meant Maya could finally afford an apartment that didn't smell like curry and have a checking account with more than 2 digits. But it also meant she was visible. The other interns looked at her with undisguised resentment. James Park made pointed comments about favoritism and nepotism, even though Maya had no connections to speak of. The junior analysts in strategic planning treated her with cautious distance, waiting to see if she'd crash and burn. And then there were the whispers. Maya heard them in the break room, in the bathroom, in the elevator when people thought she wasn't listening. Ethan Cade personally promoted her. She must have done something to catch his attention. You know what they say about men like him and young women who get ahead fast? Maya tried to ignore it. She kept her head down, worked twice as hard as anyone else, and pretended the rumors didn't feel like knives between her ribs. But 3 weeks into her new position, the whispers got louder. She was working late again when Jennifer stopped by her desk. It was past 9 and the office was mostly empty. Go home, Maya, Jennifer said, not unkindly. The analysis will still be here tomorrow. I just want to finish the revenue projections. Tomorrow, Jennifer repeated firmly. She hesitated, then pulled up a chair. Can I give you some advice? Maya saved her work, bracing herself. Of course. You're good at what you do, really good, but you need to be careful. Careful of what? Jennifer chose her words carefully. This company runs on perception as much as performance. And right now, people are talking. Maya's stomach tightened. About me. About why Ethan Cade took a personal interest in an intern with no connections and no history with the company. Jennifer's expression was sympathetic but firm. I don't know why he promoted you, and honestly, I don't care. I've seen your work. You're here because you're talented, but other people will make assumptions. Let them, Maya said, hearing the edge in her own voice. I can't control what people think. No, but you can control how you respond to it. Don't give them ammunition. Don't be seen going to his office. Don't seek him out. And for the love of everything, don't let yourself become the subject of more speculation than you already are. Maya wanted to argue, wanted to point out how unfair it was that she had to police her own behavior because other people couldn't handle seeing a woman succeed without assigning ulterior motives. But Jennifer was right. Fair or not, this was the game. Understood, Maya said quietly. Jennifer squeezed her shoulder and left. Maya sat alone in the empty office, staring at her computer screen without seeing it. She thought about Ethan Cade, about the way he'd looked at her in his office, about the opportunity he'd handed her without explanation. She hadn't seen him since that meeting 3 weeks ago, hadn't spoken to him, hadn't been summoned back to the 73rd floor. For all intents and purposes, he'd forgotten she existed, which was exactly what she wanted. Wasn't it? No. Ethan Cade was not a man prone to distraction. He'd built his empire on focus, on the ability to see 10 moves ahead while everyone else was still figuring out the board. Distraction was weakness. Distraction led to mistakes, and mistakes, in his world, could be fatal. So it annoyed him immensely that he couldn't stop thinking about Maya Brooks. It wasn't attraction, or at least that's what he told himself. Yes, she was beautiful in an understated way, all dark eyes and sharp edges and a kind of fierce determination that showed in every movement. But Ethan had been surrounded by beautiful women his entire adult life. Models, actresses, heiresses. They threw themselves at him with predictable regularity, and he felt nothing. No, what bothered him about Maya was simpler and somehow more complicated. She'd looked at him like he was human, not a weapon, not a monster, not even a powerful man to be feared or used, just a person who'd gotten in her way. It had been so long since anyone had treated him that casually, that normally, that the memory of it stuck like a splinter he couldn't quite dig out. He promoted her because she deserved it. That part was true. Her work was exceptional, and wasting her in the intern program was stupid. But he'd also done it because he wanted to see what she'd do with real responsibility, wanted to see if that fearlessness translated beyond hallway collisions, and because if he was being honest with himself, he wanted a reason to see her again. Ethan stood at his window. He spent a lot of time at this window, especially late at night when the city below sparkled like stars had fallen to earth, and reviewed the surveillance footage his head of security had compiled. He wasn't spying, not exactly, he just kept track of his investments. Maya was an investment now, that's all. The footage showed her leaving the building at 11 p.m., exhausted and alone. Showed her taking the subway instead of a car service, even though her new salary could afford better. Showed her stopping at a bodega near her apartment to buy ramen and energy drinks. She was drowning herself in work, trying to prove she belonged. Ethan understood that impulse better than anyone. His phone buzzed. A text from Marcus Chen, his head of security and one of the few people Ethan actually trusted. The Brooks situation is generating talk. Ethan typed back. What kind of talk? The kind you don't want. People are speculating about her promotion, about why you're interested. I'm not interested. I promoted a talented analyst. That's not unusual. You've never personally promoted an intern before. That's very unusual. Ethan frowned at his phone. Marcus was right, of course. In the 15 years since Ethan had taken control of Cade Industries, he'd never once intervened in HR decisions at that level. He had people for that. Your point? My point is that you're making her visible. And visibility in your world is dangerous. People are going to dig into her background, look for leverage. If you actually care about this girl, you should stay away from her. Ethan read the message 3 times. Noted, he typed back. Then he pulled up Maya's file again, studying her personnel photo. She looked uncomfortable in it, like she hated having her picture taken. Her expression was guarded, but her eyes held that same fearless spark. Marcus was right. The smart move was to forget about Maya Brooks, let her succeed or fail on her own merits, and never think about her again. Ethan had built an empire on smart moves, but for the first time in his carefully controlled life, he found himself wanting to make a stupid one. Maya's first month in strategic planning passed in a blur of spreadsheets, presentations, and carefully avoiding any situation that might put her in Ethan Cade's orbit. It should have been easy. The 73rd floor was a world away from 47, and Ethan clearly had no interest in tracking the day-to-day progress of a junior analyst he'd promoted on a whim. Except he kept appearing. Not obviously, not in ways anyone else would notice. But Maya noticed. She'd be in a meeting, presenting her analysis of a potential acquisition, and Ethan would slip in through the back door. He'd stand there for 10, maybe 15 minutes, listening without comment, and then leave before anyone could acknowledge him. She'd be working late, and the security guard would appear with coffee from the executive floor. Compliments of Mr. Cade, miss. She'd submit a report and get it back with notes in the margins, suggestions that were always insightful and never signed but written in a handwriting she was starting to recognize. It was subtle, careful, almost kind, and it was driving her crazy. He's watching you, Zoe said one night over cheap wine in Maya's slightly less terrible new apartment. Your Ice King is definitely watching you. He's not my anything, Maya said, but her cheeks felt hot. And he's not watching me, he's just monitoring his investment. Uh-huh. Is that why he sent you coffee at midnight last Tuesday? The security guard could have been mistaken about where it came from. Zoe gave her a look that said exactly how stupid that sounded. Maya sighed, pulling her knees up to her chest. It doesn't matter anyway. Even if he is paying attention, it's not personal. Men like Ethan Cade don't do personal. Maybe, Zoe said. Or maybe he's just been waiting for someone brave enough to treat him like a human being instead of a walking nightmare. That's a romance novel talking. Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, a powerful, lonely man who's never shown interest in anyone suddenly can't stop thinking about the one woman who wasn't afraid of him sounds exactly like the start of a very complicated love story. Maya threw a pillow at her. You're ridiculous. But that night, alone in bed, she found herself wondering, what would it be like to really know Ethan Cade? To see past the ice and the power to whatever was underneath? And why did the thought make her heart race like she was standing on the edge of something dangerous and impossible, and maybe, just maybe, worth the fall? The invitation came on a Friday afternoon. Maya was reviewing quarterly projections when her computer pinged with a calendar notification. A meeting had been added to her schedule. Strategic Review, Conference Room A, 6 p.m. She frowned. Strategic reviews didn't usually include junior analysts, and they definitely didn't happen at 6 p.m. on a Friday. But the meeting was marked as mandatory, and the organizer was listed as E. Cade. Maya's pulse quickened. At 5:55, she gathered her laptop and notes and made her way to Conference Room A. It was on the executive floor, naturally, in a part of the building she'd successfully avoided for weeks. The conference room was empty when she arrived. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a table that could seat 20, and absolutely no one. Maya checked her phone. 5:58. She was early, but not that early. At exactly 6 o'clock, the door opened. Ethan Cade walked in alone. He looked tired, Maya noticed. There were shadows under his eyes she hadn't seen before, and his tie was loosened just slightly, the only imperfection in his otherwise flawless appearance. Miss Brooks, he said, closing the door behind him. Thank you for coming. The meeting was marked mandatory, Maya said, trying to keep her voice steady. I assumed I didn't have a choice. Everyone has choices. He moved to the window, that same position she'd seen him in before, looking out over the city. I wanted to talk to you away from the usual channels. This seemed easier than summoning you to my office again. Talk to me about what? How you're adjusting. Whether the position is what you expected. He glanced over his shoulder at her. Whether you're happy. The question was so unexpected that Maya almost laughed. Does it matter if I'm happy? To me? Yes. The simple honesty of it hit her like a physical thing. Maya sat down, needing the support of the chair. I'm fine, she said carefully. The work is challenging. Jennifer is an excellent supervisor. I'm learning a lot. That's a very diplomatic non-answer. It's the truth. Part of it, maybe. Ethan turned to face her fully, and the intensity of his focus was almost overwhelming. I've been getting reports. People talk about you. Maya's stomach dropped. I know. Does it bother you? Does it matter if it bothers me? She heard the edge in her voice and tried to soften it. I can't control what people say. I can only control my work. That's a very mature attitude. It's a survival tactic. Something shifted in Ethan's expression. You've had to survive before. It wasn't a question, but Maya answered anyway. I put myself through college, paid my own way. Nobody handed me anything. She met his eyes. Until you did? I didn't hand you anything. I recognized talent and moved it to where it could be useful. That's business, not charity. People don't see it that way. People see what they want to see. Ethan moved closer, and Maya's breath caught. I don't particularly care what they think. That must be nice. It's necessary. He stopped a few feet away, closer than professional distance, but not quite crossing the line. In my position, caring what people think is a weakness that gets exploited. Sounds lonely. The word hung between them. Ethan's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. It's practical. It's lonely, Maya repeated, softer this time. No one to trust, no one to let close, just you and your empire and all this. She gestured at the window, at the city beyond. All this power that keeps everyone at exactly the distance you want them. You think you understand me? His voice was quiet, almost dangerous. No, Maya said honestly. I don't understand you at all, but I recognize the walls when I see them. For a long moment, Ethan just stared at her. Then, so quietly she almost missed it, he said, You should be careful. Of what? Of me. He said it like a warning, like a confession, of getting too close to someone who lives in a world you don't understand, a world that's not kind to people who don't know its rules. Maya stood up, and suddenly they were very close, close enough that she could see the silver threads in his gray eyes. Maybe I don't want to be careful, she heard herself say. Maybe I'm tired of playing it safe. Ethan's hand moved, just slightly, like he was going to reach for her, but he caught himself, curling his fingers into a fist. You don't know what you're saying. Don't I? The air between them felt charged, electric. Maya could feel her heart pounding, could see the war happening behind Ethan's carefully controlled expression. Then his phone rang, shattering the moment. Ethan stepped back and the distance felt like miles. He pulled out his phone, glanced at the screen, and his entire demeanor changed, became colder, harder. I have to take this, he said, and his voice was back to that flat, emotionless tone she'd heard in the lobby weeks ago. Of course. Maya gathered her things with shaking hands. She was at the door when Ethan spoke again. Maya. She turned. He was silhouetted against the window, backlit by the city lights, and he looked like something out of a dream, beautiful and cold and completely untouchable. Be careful, he said again. Please. Then he answered the phone, turning away, and Maya slipped out of the conference room with her heart racing and her mind spinning. She'd almost kissed Ethan Cade, or he'd almost kissed her, or they'd almost done something that would have changed everything. And the scariest part? She wanted it to happen again. Maya didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every word, every look, every moment of tension in that conference room. The way Ethan had almost reached for her. The way his voice had cracked just slightly when he told her to be careful. The way she'd wanted him to touch her so badly it scared her. By Monday morning, she'd convinced herself it meant nothing. A moment of weakness, nothing more. Ethan Cade was her boss. Indirectly, but still. Getting involved with him would be professional suicide, not to mention stupid on about 17 different levels. She arrived at the office determined to focus on work and only work. The universe had other plans. Brooks, conference room, now. Jennifer appeared at Maya's desk before she'd even finished her coffee. Her expression was unreadable, but her tone had an edge Maya hadn't heard before. Maya's stomach nodded. Is something wrong? Just come. The conference room held 5 people. Jennifer, 2 senior analysts Maya recognized but had never worked with directly, Margaret Chen from HR, and Marcus Chen, no relation to Margaret, but head of corporate security and someone Maya had only ever seen from a distance. No one was smiling. Sit down, Maya, Margaret said, gesturing to an empty chair. Maya sat, her mind racing through every possible thing she could have done wrong. A mistake in her analysis? A missed deadline? But no, she triple-checked everything, always. Marcus spoke first. Miss Brooks, how well do you know Ethan Cade? The question felt like a trap. I don't know him well at all. He promoted me 6 weeks ago. We've spoken a few times. How many times exactly? I don't know, maybe 4 or 5? Maya looked between the faces staring at her. What is this about? Margaret folded her hands on the table. We've received complaints. Multiple complaints, actually. About favoritism, about inappropriate relationships between executives and subordinates, about violations of company policy. Maya's face went hot. I haven't violated any policies. I've barely even seen Mr. Cade since he promoted you without following standard procedures. One of the senior analysts cut in. His name was Robert something, and he looked at Maya like she was dirt on his shoe. Since he started sending you coffee and leaving notes on your reports. Since he requested you specifically for projects that should go to analysts with more experience. I didn't ask for any of that, Maya said, hearing her voice rise. I didn't ask to be promoted. I didn't ask for his attention. I just do my job. No one's accusing you of impropriety, Jennifer said quietly, but her eyes said she wasn't entirely convinced. But the appearance of favoritism creates problems. For you, for the department, for the company. Marcus leaned forward. We need to ask you directly, Miss Brooks. Are you involved with Ethan Cade in any capacity beyond your professional relationship? No. The word came out too fast, too defensive. Have you been to his apartment? No. Has he been to yours? No. Have you had any contact with him outside of work hours or company property? Maya hesitated. The messages. There had been a few messages, nothing inappropriate, just quick questions about projects or feedback on her work. But they'd come through her personal phone, not company email. Marcus caught the hesitation. Miss Brooks? He's messaged me a few times. About work. That's all. On your personal device? Yes, but that's a violation of communication protocols, Robert said, looking satisfied. All work-related communication is supposed to go through company channels. I didn't know that, Maya said, which was true. No one had ever mentioned communication protocols to her. Look, I don't know what people are saying, but nothing inappropriate has happened. Mr. Cade has been professional. I've been professional. If there's a perception problem, I can request a transfer. That won't be necessary, Margaret interrupted. But we do need to establish some boundaries. No more private meetings with Mr. Cade without a third party present. No more personal communications outside official channels. And for the next 60 days, you'll be under review. Your work will be evaluated by an independent committee to ensure your position is merited. The implication was clear. Prove you deserve to be here, or we'll find a reason to let you go. Maya felt sick. Understood. Good. Margaret stood, signaling the meeting was over. You can return to work. Maya walked back to her desk on shaking legs. Around her, people whispered and stared. The meeting had been behind closed doors, but somehow everyone already knew. She made it to the bathroom before the tears started. She was leaning against the sink, trying to pull herself together, when the door opened. Zoe rushed in, looking panicked. Oh my God, Maya, I just heard. Not now. Maya splashed cold water on her face, willing her eyes to stop burning. I can't do this now. What did they say? Are you fired? No, just under review. 60 days of people watching my every move, waiting for me to screw up. She grabbed paper towels, pressing them against her eyes. This is such bullshit, Zoe. I didn't do anything wrong. I know that. But everyone else thinks I slept my way into this job. They think I'm some kind of... She couldn't finish the sentence. Zoe pulled her into a hug, and Maya let herself lean into it for just a moment before pulling away. I need to get back to work, Maya said. I need to prove I belong here. You do belong here. You're brilliant. Then I need to make sure everyone else knows it too. Maya went back to her desk and buried herself in work. She stayed until midnight, then came in at 6 the next morning. She volunteered for every difficult project, took on assignments no one else wanted, and made herself indispensable. And she avoided anything that might put her in Ethan Cade's path. She didn't know that 3 floors above her, Ethan was making very different decisions. Ethan read the HR report with mounting fury. They did what? His voice was quiet, which Marcus knew from experience was infinitely more dangerous than shouting. Standard procedure for complaints of favoritism, Marcus said carefully. He stood on the other side of Ethan's desk, posture relaxed but ready. Margaret followed protocol. Protocol. Ethan set the report down with deliberate care. They interrogated her like a criminal because I promoted someone based on merit. You promoted an intern with no experience to a position that typically requires 5 years in the field. You sent her coffee at midnight. You've been messaging her personal phone. Marcus ticked off points on his fingers. From the outside, Ethan, it looks exactly like what they're accusing you of. I don't care how it looks. You should. Because now Maya Brooks is under review, her reputation is being torn apart, and every piece of work she does will be scrutinized for the next 2 months. All because you couldn't stay away. Ethan's jaw tightened. Marcus was one of maybe 3 people in the world who could talk to him like this, and he only got away with it because he was usually right. What do you suggest? Back off. Completely. No contact, no special treatment, no attention whatsoever. Let her prove herself without your shadow hanging over her. Marcus paused. And maybe figure out why you care so much about one junior analyst. She's talented. I don't like seeing talent wasted. Right. That's why you've been watching security footage of her leaving the building every night. That's why you know she takes the Q train instead of a car service and buys dinner from the bodega on 42nd because you care about wasting talent. Ethan said nothing. Marcus sighed. Look, I've known you for 15 years. I've never seen you like this about anyone. If you actually care about this woman, the best thing you can do is leave her alone. Let her build her career without your interference. Because the more attention you give her, the more you're painting a target on her back. I know. Ethan turned to his window, that eternal view of the city he controlled. I know that. Then act like it. After Marcus left, Ethan stood alone in his office and made a decision he knew was right and hated anyway. He would stay away from Maya Brooks. He would let her prove herself without his help. He would stop watching, stop caring, stop thinking about the way she looked at him like he was worth seeing. It was the smart move, the safe move, the move that felt like cutting off his own arm. 3 weeks passed. Maya threw herself into work with an intensity that bordered on obsessive. The independent review committee examined every analysis she produced, questioned every conclusion, challenged every recommendation. She responded with data, with logic, with airtight reasoning that left no room for doubt. Slowly, grudgingly, people started to notice. The Brooks analysis on the Centennial merger was actually solid, she overheard Robert admit in the break room. I tried to find holes in it. Couldn't. She stays later than anyone else in the department, another analyst said. I've never seen someone work that hard. Maybe Cade saw something we missed. The whispers changed. Not completely. There were still people convinced she'd slept her way up, but enough that Maya could breathe a little easier. She hadn't seen Ethan once in those 3 weeks. Hadn't received any messages, any coffee, any indication he remembered she existed. It was exactly what she'd wanted, exactly what she needed. So why did it feel like losing something she'd never actually had? You look like hell, Zoe announced one Saturday afternoon, showing up at Maya's apartment with takeout and wine. When was the last time you slept? I sleep. Maya accepted the wine gratefully. For more than 4 hours? Sleep is overrated. So is burning yourself out to prove a point. Zoe set out containers of Thai food, the good kind, from a place in the village that cost actual money. You've proven yourself, Maya. Everyone knows you're brilliant. You can ease up a little. Not yet. I've still got 3 weeks of review left. And then what? You work yourself to death for another 3 weeks to prove you can maintain it? At some point, you have to just live your life. Maya picked at her pad thai. He hasn't spoken to me in weeks. Ethan? He's completely disappeared. Like I don't exist. Zoe studied her carefully. Isn't that what you wanted? Yes. No. I don't know. Maya set down her fork. It doesn't matter what I want. He's my boss. He's Ethan Cade. The whole thing was impossible from the start. Was it though? Or are you just scared? Of course I'm scared. Do you have any idea what people would do to me if they thought I was actually involved with him? The review would be nothing compared to... I'm not talking about other people. I'm talking about you. About what you feel when you think about him. Maya was quiet for a long moment. Then, so softly, Zoe almost missed it. I miss him. Even though you barely knew him? Especially because I barely knew him. Because what I did see was... Maya struggled for words. Everyone treats him like he's this cold, untouchable thing. But when he looked at me, when we talked, I saw someone lonely. Someone who's built these walls so high, he can't remember what it's like to let anyone in. And for just a moment, I thought maybe he wanted to. With you. With anyone. I just happened to be there. She laughed bitterly. Story of my life, right? Wrong place, wrong time, wrong person. Zoe reached across and squeezed her hand. Or maybe exactly the right place, right time, right person. Just terrible circumstances. Maya squeezed back, grateful for the friendship, even if she couldn't quite believe the optimism. That night, alone again, she lay in bed and let herself admit the truth she'd been avoiding. She'd fallen for Ethan Cade. Not the legend, not the CEO, not the man everyone else saw. She'd fallen for the person underneath, the one who noticed details, who recognized talent, who'd looked at her in that conference room like she was something precious and impossible. And she had absolutely no idea what to do about it. The attack came on a Tuesday. Maya was working late. Of course she was working late. When her computer screen flickered, then went black, then displayed a message in bright red text, property of Ethan Cade, hands off. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. You're nothing, you'll always be nothing. He'll get bored and throw you away like garbage. Then another. Enjoy it while it lasts, slut. Maya's hands were shaking as more messages flooded in. Dozens of them, all from different numbers, all variations on the same theme. Threats, insults, graphic descriptions of what she deserved. She tried to close her laptop, but it wouldn't respond. The screen cycled through photos, her apartment building, her morning subway stop, the coffee shop where she grabbed breakfast. Someone had been following her. Maya grabbed her phone with trembling hands and did the only thing she could think of. She called security. Marcus Chen arrived in less than 5 minutes, 2 other security personnel flanking him. He took one look at Maya's computer and his expression went dark. Don't touch anything. He pulled out his phone, making a call. We need a full sweep. Conference room B, 47th floor. Now. To Maya, he said, Are you hurt? She shook her head, not trusting her voice. Good. Come with me. You're not staying in this office tonight. Marcus escorted her to a secure room she didn't even know existed. No windows, reinforced door, completely isolated from the rest of the building. 2 guards stationed themselves outside. What's happening? Maya finally managed. Who would do this? I don't know yet, but we'll find out. Marcus's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his expression shifted. I need to take this. Don't leave this room. Don't open the door for anyone except me. Understood? Maya nodded. Marcus stepped outside, and through the crack in the door, Maya heard his side of the conversation. Sir, we have a situation. No, she's safe. Yes, it was targeted. I'm handling it. Sir, I really think you should stay. The door flew open. Ethan Cade strode in like a force of nature, his expression absolutely murderous. Behind him, Marcus looked resigned. Out, Ethan said to Marcus without looking at him. Sir, out. Marcus left, closing the door. Ethan crossed the room in 3 strides and grabbed Maya's shoulders, his eyes scanning her face with an intensity that made her breath catch. Are you hurt? His voice was rough, nothing like the controlled tone she was used to. No, I'm fine. Did anyone touch you, approach you? No, it was just messages, and he pulled her against his chest, and the movement was so sudden, so unexpected, that Maya froze. She could feel his heart pounding, could feel the tension vibrating through him. Ethan, she whispered. He pulled back just enough to look at her, and what she saw in his eyes made her heart stop. Raw fear, genuine terror, and underneath it all, something else. Something that looked a lot like the feeling currently tearing her apart. I'm going to find who did this, he said, his voice low and dangerous. And I'm going to destroy them. You can't know it was about you. It's always about me. He released her but didn't step away. Everything in this building is about me. And if someone is using you to get to me, then yes, Maya, it's absolutely about me. This is exactly why I've been staying away, she said, finding her voice. This is why we can't what? The question hung between them, loaded with everything they hadn't said. You know what? Say it. No. Maya, because it's insane. She pushed past him, needing space to think. You're Ethan Cade. I'm a junior analyst who's been here less than 2 months. People already think I slept my way into this job. If they knew that She stopped, breathing hard. That you what? Ethan's voice was quiet now, dangerous in a different way. Maya turned to face him. That I can't stop thinking about you. That I miss you, even though I barely know you. That when you looked at me in that conference room, I wanted you to kiss me so badly I forgot how to breathe. The words came out in a rush. Is that what you want to hear? That I'm stupid enough to have feelings for someone so completely wrong for me that it would be funny if it wasn't so pathetic? Ethan stared at her. Then, in 2 steps, he closed the distance between them. You think you're the only one? His voice was rough, raw. You think I don't know it's wrong? That I haven't tried to stay away, tried to forget you, tried to convince myself that what I feel is just curiosity or boredom or anything other than what it actually is? Which is what? Obsession. The word came out like a confession torn from somewhere deep. I think about you constantly. I know your schedule, your habits, what you order for lunch. I've watched you leave this building every night for 6 weeks because I need to know you got home safe. I've read every report you've written, every analysis, every email. I've never felt this for anyone, Maya. Never wanted anyone the way I want you. And it's dangerous and stupid and completely impossible, but I can't make it stop. Maya couldn't breathe. Ethan, you should run. He said it like a warning, even as his hand came up to cup her face. You should walk out of this room and never look back. Because I'm not good for you. I'm not good for anyone. Everything I touch eventually breaks. Then why are you touching me? Because I'm selfish. Because even knowing I'll hurt you, I can't seem to stop myself from wanting this. This? Instead of answering, he kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate and hungry, and tasted like years of wanting nothing and suddenly wanting everything. Maya made a sound against his mouth and kissed him back just as fiercely, her hands fisting in his shirt. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Ethan pressed his forehead against hers. This is a mistake, he said. Probably. It's going to make everything more complicated. I know. People will talk. They'll say terrible things about you. About us. Let them. He pulled back to look at her, searching her face. You don't know what you're saying yes to. Then tell me. Ethan's expression was raw, unguarded in a way she'd never seen. I live in a world where people kill for power, where loyalty is bought and sold, where trust is weakness. I have enemies, Maya. Real enemies who would hurt you just to hurt me. If we do this, if we're together, you become a target, you become leverage. Everything you do, everyone you talk to, everywhere you go, it all becomes a potential threat. You're trying to scare me. I'm trying to be honest. Maya stepped back, putting space between them so she could think. Her lips still tingled from the kiss. Her whole body felt electric, alive in a way it never had before. I'm not an idiot, she said finally. I know what you are. I know the rumors, the whispers. I know you're dangerous. She met his eyes. But I also know what I saw in that conference room. What I see right now. You're not just the monster everyone thinks you are. You don't know that, don't I? She took a step toward him. You promoted me because I deserved it, not because you wanted something from me. You've stayed away for weeks even though it clearly killed you because you thought it was better for me. You just pulled me against you like you were terrified I'd been hurt. Like the idea of someone touching me made you capable of murder. Another step. That's not a monster, Ethan. That's someone who cares, someone who's scared. I'm not scared of anything. Liar. She was close enough to touch him now. You're terrified, of feeling something real, of letting someone see past the ice, of being human. Ethan's control cracked. You want to see human? Fine. He grabbed her hand and pressed it against his chest, over his racing heart. This is what you do to me. Every time I see you, every time I hear your voice, every moment I'm near you. You make me feel things I spent years learning not to feel. You make me want things I can't have. You make me weak. That's not weakness. In my world, it is. Then maybe, Maya said softly, your world is wrong. They stood there, the truth hanging between them like something fragile and dangerous. Finally, Ethan spoke. If we do this, if we try this, it has to be a secret. No one can know. Not yet. Why? Because the moment people know you matter to me, you become a target. Every enemy I have will look for ways to use you. The only way to keep you safe is to keep this quiet. Maya wanted to argue, wanted to say they shouldn't have to hide, but she'd seen the fear in his eyes when he'd burst into this room, had felt the desperation in his kiss. He wasn't exaggerating. This was real. Okay, she said. Secret. Maya. I'm saying yes, Ethan, to all of it. The secrecy, the danger, the complications. I'm saying yes because I'm tired of being careful. I'm tired of playing it safe. She reached up and touched his face, feeling him lean into her palm. I'm saying yes because when I'm with you, I feel alive, and that's worth the risk. Ethan closed his eyes, and for just a moment, he looked young, vulnerable. Then he opened them, and the ice was back, but different now. Colder, harder, protective. Then we do this my way. You don't tell anyone. Not your friends, not your roommate, no one. We're careful, we're smart. And the second it becomes too dangerous, it's already dangerous, Maya interrupted. But I'm still here. Something shifted in Ethan's expression. Something like wonder. Then he was kissing her again, and Maya stopped thinking about danger or consequences or anything except the way it felt to be in his arms. When they finally left that secure room an hour later, they left separately. Ethan first, all business and cold authority. Maya 10 minutes after, escorted by Marcus, who looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. He cares about you, Marcus said as they walked. More than he's cared about anyone in a very long time. I know. That makes you valuable to a lot of dangerous people. I know that too. Marcus stopped, studying her. But you're not going to walk away. No. Then you need to understand something. Ethan Cade has enemies who would burn this entire city down just to hurt him. They'll come for you eventually. When they do, you can't hesitate. You can't show weakness, and you absolutely cannot expect him to save you every time. I don't need saving. Marcus smiled, and it wasn't entirely friendly. We'll see. He left her at the elevator, and Maya rode down alone, her mind spinning. She just agreed to a secret relationship with one of the most dangerous men in the city. She should have been terrified. Instead, she felt alive. Maya made it home, locked her door, and leaned against it with shaking hands. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number, but this time she knew who it was from. Are you home safe? She smiled despite everything. Yes. Are you? I'm never safe, but knowing you are helps. Maya stared at the message for a long time. Then she typed back, same. That night she dreamed of gray eyes and frozen hearts and what it might take to thaw them. She dreamed of danger and desire and decisions that couldn't be undone. And when she woke up the next morning, she didn't regret a single thing. The next 2 weeks existed in a strange double reality. During the day, Maya was the dedicated analyst everyone had begun to respect. She arrived early, stayed late, and produced work that even her harshest critics couldn't dismiss. The independent review was entering its final phase, and the committee had stopped looking for reasons to fail her and started looking genuinely impressed. At night, she belonged to Ethan. They were careful. Painfully, meticulously careful. They never arrived or left together, never spoke in the office beyond what was professionally necessary. Maya took different routes home each night, switched subway cars at random stops, checked constantly for anyone following. But 3 nights a week, she'd get a text with an address. A different location each time. Hotel suites booked under shell companies. Private apartments Ethan owned that no one knew about. Once even a penthouse under construction that belonged to a project Cade Industries had acquired. And there, behind closed doors and drawn curtains, they could stop pretending. Tell me something real, Maya said one night, lying in Ethan's arms in a hotel room overlooking the Hudson. They'd just made love. That's what it felt like now, not just sex, but something deeper. And she was tracing patterns on his chest, feeling his heartbeat slow under her palm. What do you want to know? Anything. Everything. She propped herself up on one elbow to look at him. I know what everyone says about you. I want to know the truth. Ethan was quiet for a long moment, his fingers playing absently with her hair. The truth is boring. Liar. He smiled slightly at that. What specifically? Why did you build all this? The empire, the power, the reputation that makes people cross the street to avoid you. Because power is safety. He said it simply, like it was obvious. When you have nothing, you're vulnerable. People can hurt you, use you, throw you away. But when you have everything, when you're the one with the power, no one can touch you. Is that what happened when you were younger? His hand stilled in her hair. Maya waited, not pushing, just being there. Finally, he spoke. I grew up in foster care. 7 different homes between the ages of 6 and 16. Some were just indifferent, some were worse. His voice was carefully neutral, but Maya could feel the tension in his body. I learned early that kindness was conditional, that people only cared about you if you were useful or profitable. So I made myself useful, made myself indispensable. And the moment I was old enough, I made sure I'd never need anyone again. Maya's throat tightened. What happened when you were 16? I emancipated myself. Took the money I'd saved from working since I was 12 and invested it. Started with nothing, built it into something, then something bigger. By 25, I'd made my first million. By 30, my first billion. He looked at her then, and his eyes were dark. And I promised myself I'd never be that powerless kid again, never be at anyone's mercy. So you became the one everyone else fears. Yes, and you're alone. I was alone. His hand cupped her face. Until you crashed into my life with an armful of papers, and no sense of self-preservation. Maya smiled despite the heaviness in her chest. Still think that was an accident? I don't believe in accidents, but I'm starting to believe in fate. She kissed him, soft and slow, trying to pour everything she felt into it. When they broke apart, Ethan pulled her close, and Maya tucked herself against his side. Your turn, he said. Tell me something real. Like what? Why you work so hard? Why you push yourself until you're exhausted? Why you took an unpaid internship when you had actual job offers? Maya was quiet, thinking, because I'm terrified of being ordinary, of being forgettable. She felt his arms tighten around her. I grew up watching my mom work 3 jobs just to keep us in a shitty apartment. She was brilliant, could have done anything, but she got pregnant at 19 and spent the rest of her life just surviving. She used to tell me, "Don't be like me, Maya. Don't let fear make you small." Where is she now? She died when I was 20, cancer. Maya's voice cracked slightly. And I promised her I'd be bigger than my fear. That I'd take every risk, fight for every opportunity, never settle for safe when I could have extraordinary. Is that what this is? Ethan asked quietly. Me. Us. Taking a risk? The biggest one I've ever taken. She looked up at him. But yeah, extraordinary. He kissed her forehead, and they lay there in the dark. 2 people who'd learned to survive alone trying to figure out how to be together. Maya's phone buzzed on the nightstand. She ignored it. It buzzed again. And again. You should check that, Ethan said, though he didn't release her. Reluctantly, Maya reached for her phone. 7 missed calls from Zoe. 3 urgent texts. Call me Maya. Call me now, I'm coming over. Are you home? Please tell me you're home. Maya's stomach dropped. Something's wrong. She called Zoe back and her friend picked up before the first ring finished. Oh, thank God. Where are you? Maya glanced at Ethan. I'm out. What's wrong? Have you checked your email or social media or literally anything in the past hour? No. Why? Because someone leaked a story about you and Ethan Cade. The world tilted. Maya sat up, suddenly cold despite the warm room. What kind of story? The bad kind. Photos of you leaving the building late at night. Text messages. I don't know if they're real or faked, but they look intimate. An anonymous source claiming you've been having an affair with him for months, that he promoted you in exchange for sexual favors, that the whole thing is a scandal waiting to blow up. Zoe's voice was shaking. Maya, it's everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, gossip sites. Your name is trending. Maya looked at Ethan, and whatever he saw on her face made him sit up immediately. Let me call you back, Maya said, and hung up before Zoe could respond. What happened? Ethan's voice was sharp, already reaching for his own phone. Someone leaked us. Photos, messages, everything. Ethan's expression went absolutely cold. He pulled up his phone, typed rapidly, and whatever he saw made his jaw clench hard enough that Maya could see the muscle jump. Marcus, he said into the phone when his head of security answered, we have a problem. While Ethan spoke in clipped, controlled sentences, Maya pulled up Twitter on her phone with shaking hands. Her name was the 3rd trending topic. Hashtag Maya Brooks, hashtag Cade Scandal, hashtag Sleeping to the Top. The photos were damning. Maya leaving the Cade Industries building at midnight, looking exhausted and disheveled. Walking into what was clearly an expensive hotel. One particularly bad one showed her in what looked like Ethan's office, though the angle suggested it had been taken from a distance, from another building maybe, with a telephoto lens. The text messages were worse. Screenshots of conversations that looked exactly like the one she and Ethan had exchanged. Some were real, some were edited just enough to seem more suggestive than they actually were. Miss you, can't stop thinking about last night. When can I see you again? And underneath it all, hundreds of comments. Gold digger. Knew she didn't earn that promotion? How does it feel to whore yourself out for success? Maya felt like she was drowning. Ethan ended his call and immediately pulled her against him. Look at me. She couldn't stop reading the vicious words, the gleeful cruelty of strangers tearing her apart. Maya, look at me. She looked up and his eyes were blazing. This is what I was afraid of, he said. This is why I wanted to keep it secret. But it's happening now and we need to deal with it. How? Her voice came out small. How do we deal with this? My career is over. Everyone will think, I don't care what they think. Neither should you. Easy for you to say, you're Ethan Cade. I'm the girl who supposedly slept her way to the top. No. His grip on her shoulders tightened. You're the woman who's brilliant enough to threaten people who've been coasting on mediocrity for years. You're the analyst who found a $4 million discrepancy no one else caught. You're Maya Brooks, and you earned every single thing you have. The internet doesn't think so. The internet is wrong. Maya wanted to believe him, but her phone kept buzzing with notifications, each one another person gleefully destroying her reputation. Who would do this? She asked. Who would leak this? Someone who wants to hurt me by hurting you, or someone who wants to hurt you directly. Ethan's expression was murderous. Marcus is pulling security footage tracking the leak source. We'll find out who did this. And then what? Then I destroy them. He said it so calmly, so matter-of-factly, that Maya believed him completely. Her phone rang. Margaret from HR. Maya stared at the screen, her heart sinking. Don't answer it, Ethan said. I have to. If I don't, it looks like I'm guilty. Maya? But she was already answering. Hello? Miss Brooks? Margaret's voice was cold, professional, utterly devoid of sympathy. I'm calling to inform you that you've been placed on immediate administrative leave pending an investigation into allegations of improper conduct. You are not to enter the Cade Industries building or contact any employees until further notice. A formal hearing will be scheduled within the next 2 weeks. I understand. Maya's voice sounded hollow, even to herself. Your security access has been revoked. Please return any company property by end of business tomorrow. Okay. Margaret hung up without another word. Maya set down her phone very carefully, like it might explode. They suspended me. I'll fix this, Ethan said immediately. How? By admitting we're together? That'll just prove everyone right. I don't care. Well, I do. Maya stood up, suddenly needing to move. I care that my career is being destroyed. I care that everyone thinks I'm a whore who traded sex for success. I care that my mother didn't work herself to death so I could become a cautionary tale about women who sleep with their bosses. This isn't your fault, isn't it? I knew this was dangerous. You told me it was dangerous, and I said yes anyway because I was selfish and reckless, and Ethan crossed the room and grabbed her face in both hands, forcing her to look at him. Stop. This is not on you. This is someone weaponizing our relationship, and that's on me. My enemies, my world, my consequences. His thumbs brushed away tears Maya hadn't realized were falling. But I swear to you, I will find who did this, and I will make them regret it. That won't give me my career back. Then I'll give you a different one. Better. Bigger. I don't want you to give me anything. I want to earn it myself. You have earned it. Every single thing. His eyes were fierce. And anyone who says different is lying or jealous or both. Maya wanted to believe him, wanted to let his certainty be enough. But her phone kept buzzing, and the comments kept coming, and somewhere out there someone was laughing at how easy it had been to destroy her. I should go home, she said quietly, before someone spots me here. Stay. Let me. There's nothing you can do tonight, and tomorrow I need to figure out how to salvage my life. She pulled away gently. I need to think. Ethan looked like he wanted to argue, but something in her expression stopped him. I'll have Marcus take you home. Different car, different route. Thank you. Maya. He caught her hand. This isn't over. The relationship, the career, none of it. I won't let them win. Who's them? Everyone who wants to see you fail. Everyone who's threatened by what you represent. Everyone who thinks power and money can crush someone like you. His grip tightened. They're wrong, and I'm going to prove it. Maya kissed him, soft and sad, tasting like goodbye even though neither of them said it. I'll call you tomorrow, she whispered. She left before he could respond, and the look on his face as the door closed between them would haunt her for days. Marcus drove her home in silence, taking a route so convoluted Maya lost track of where they were. When they finally pulled up to her building, he spoke for the first time. He's going to burn the city down for you. You know that, right? I don't want him to. Doesn't matter what you want. It's already happening. Marcus looked at her in the rearview mirror. Question is, when the smoke clears, will you still be standing? Maya didn't have an answer. She made it upstairs to find Zoe waiting in the hallway, holding wine and looking ready to commit murder on Maya's behalf. Inside, Zoe said. Now, we need to talk about everything. They spent the next 3 hours drinking cheap wine and reading through the worst of the comments until Maya felt numb. I should have listened, Maya said around midnight, curled up on her couch while Zoe braided her hair like they were kids again. Everyone warned me, Jennifer, Marcus, my own instincts, but I thought I could handle it. You can handle it. This is just a setback. A setback? Zoe, my face is all over the internet attached to the word homewrecker. I'm suspended from my job. There are think pieces being written about how I represent everything wrong with young women in corporate America. She laughed bitterly. This isn't a setback. This is my life imploding. Okay, yes, it's bad. Really bad. But you've survived worse. Like what? Like putting yourself through college. Like losing your mom. Like taking a risk on a dream when you had no safety net. Zoe moved around to look at her. You're the strongest person I know, Maya. Some internet trolls aren't going to break you. They might. Then I'll help put you back together. Zoe squeezed her hand. But first, you need to tell me the truth. Are you really in love with Ethan Cade? Maya had been avoiding that question, even in her own head. Yeah, she said finally. I really am. Then fight for it. Fight for him. Fight for yourself. Stop letting other people decide what you deserve. And if I lose? Then at least you'll lose knowing you didn't give up. Zoe smiled. Besides, something tells me Ethan Cade doesn't lose very often. Maya smiled despite everything, and they stayed up talking until dawn painted the windows gold. She didn't know that across town, Ethan was in his office making calls that would reshape the landscape of corporate Manhattan. She didn't know that he'd already identified 3 people as potential leak sources and had investigators tearing apart their lives looking for proof. She didn't know that he'd been awake for 36 hours, fueled by rage and coffee and single-minded determination. But she would find out soon enough. What? The next morning, Maya woke to her phone ringing. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Miss Brooks? A woman's voice, professional and crisp. My name is Catherine Way. I'm a partner at Morrison & Klein. I represent Ethan Cade in certain legal matters, and he's asked me to reach out regarding your current situation. Maya sat up, suddenly alert. I didn't ask for a lawyer. Nevertheless, you need one. The story that broke yesterday contains several actionable defamatory statements. We'd like to discuss filing suit against the publications that ran it, as well as pursuing criminal charges for whoever leaked private communications. I can't afford... Mr. Cade is covering all legal fees, and before you object, this isn't charity. This is him protecting his interests. The allegations affect his company as much as they affect you. Maya wanted to argue, but she was tired and scared and drowning. What would a lawsuit accomplish? Publicly, it sends a message that these allegations are false, and you won't tolerate defamation. Privately, discovery will help us identify who orchestrated the leak. Catherine's voice softened slightly. You've been attacked, Miss Brooks. You have the right to fight back. I'll think about it. Think quickly. The news cycle moves fast, and the longer you wait, the more the narrative sets. After they hung up, Maya sat staring at her phone. Fight back. The words echoed in her head. Her whole life she'd been fighting. Fighting to survive, to succeed, to prove she belonged. Maybe it was time to stop defending and start attacking. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number, but she recognized the tone immediately. Trust Catherine. Trust me. I'm going to fix this. Maya typed back, You can't fix everything. Watch me. Despite everything, she smiled. Then her phone rang again, this time a number she recognized. Robert from the review committee. Miss Brooks, I'll be brief. The committee has completed its evaluation early in light of recent events. Maya's stomach dropped. And we're recommending your immediate reinstatement with a formal commendation for exceptional work. Your 60-day review period is over. You've proven yourself beyond any reasonable doubt. Maya couldn't speak. I'll be honest, Robert continued, sounding uncomfortable. When you were first promoted, I thought it was favoritism. I was wrong. Your analysis has been some of the best work I've seen from an analyst at any level. You belong here. Thank you, Maya managed. However, given the current situation, HR has you on administrative leave. That's above my authority. But when this resolves, and I believe it will, you have a place here. A real one. Not because of who you know, but because of what you can do. After he hung up, Maya sat in stunned silence. She'd passed the review. Her work spoke for itself. Now she just had to survive the scandal. Over the next 3 days, Maya lived in a strange limbo. She didn't leave her apartment except for necessities. She ignored her social media. She let Zoe field calls from reporters looking for comments, and she waited. On the 4th day, everything changed. She woke to dozens of messages, all variations of the same thing. Have you seen the news? Maya pulled up her laptop, and her breath caught. The headline was everywhere. Cade Industries heiress arrested in corporate espionage scheme. Below it, photos of a woman Maya had never seen before being led out of an office building in handcuffs. The article identified her as Lena Shin, daughter of Jonathan Shin, owner of Meridian Global, one of Cade Industries' biggest competitors. Maya read through the article with shaking hands. Lena Shin had allegedly orchestrated an elaborate scheme to steal proprietary information from Cade Industries by planning operatives in the company. When that failed, she'd pivoted to a smear campaign designed to destabilize Ethan's leadership by creating scandals. The leaked photos and messages about Maya, fabricated by a team Lena had hired. The text messages were real, but doctored to seem more explicit. The photos were taken by private investigators Lena had paid to follow Maya. The article included quotes from Catherine Way, Maya's new lawyer, announcing that they would be pursuing both civil and criminal charges. And at the end, a statement from Ethan himself. Miss Brooks is an exceptional analyst who earned her position through merit and hard work. The allegations against her were false, malicious, and orchestrated by individuals attempting to damage both her reputation and mine. I'm pleased that the truth has come to light, and I look forward to seeing Miss Brooks return to work where she belongs. Maya's phone rang. Ethan, did you do this? She asked instead of hello. I told you I'd find who hurt you. Ethan, she went after you to hurt me, used my feelings for you as a weapon. Did you really think I'd let that stand? How did you even find the proof? I own half the cybersecurity firms in this city. I have investigators on retainer. I have resources you can't imagine. His voice softened, and I was motivated. Is any of it true? The espionage? Some of it. Enough to make the charges stick. The rest is just collateral damage. Maya closed her eyes. You destroyed her. Yes, because of me. Because she came after what's mine. He paused. You're mine, Maya, and I protect what's mine. The possessiveness should have scared her. Instead, it sent heat through her entire body. When can I see you? She asked. Tonight. My place. I'll send the address. Your actual place? Not a hotel? My actual place. No more hiding. His voice dropped lower. The world knows now. We might as well stop pretending. After they hung up, Maya sat with her laptop, watching her name trend again, but different this time. #Justice. For Maya. #Cade Industries Strong. #Lena Shin Cancelled. The narrative had flipped. Now she was the victim of a vicious attack, brave for enduring it, admirable for her professional accomplishments. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like standing in the eye of a hurricane, knowing the storm wasn't over yet. That night, Maya took a car service to an address in Tribeca. The building was elegant, understated, expensive in a way that didn't need to announce itself. Ethan met her at the door to his penthouse, and the sight of him made everything else fall away. He pulled her inside and kissed her like a drowning man finding air. I missed you, he said against her mouth. It's been 3 days. Too long. They barely made it to the bedroom. Afterward, lying tangled in sheets that probably cost more than Maya's monthly rent, she traced the line of his jaw. What happens now? Now you go back to work. You continue being brilliant. You build your career. And us? We stop hiding. Ethan rolled to face her fully. I'm done pretending I don't care. Done acting like you're not the best thing that's happened to me in years. If people want to talk, let them talk. That's a big change from secret hotels. I was trying to protect you, but someone found out anyway, and they used the secrecy against us. So we do the opposite. We're open, we're together, and anyone who has a problem with that can deal with me directly. Maya smiled. Very romantic. I'm not a romantic man. Could have fooled me. She kissed him softly. But Ethan, there's something you need to know. What? I'm not yours. She said it gently but firmly. I'm my own person. I chose you. I'm choosing you. But that's different from belonging to you. Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, maybe, or realization. You're right, he said finally. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Just remember. She traced patterns on his chest. We're partners, equals. You protect me, I protect you. That's how this works. I'm not used to having a partner. I know, but you have one now. Ethan pulled her close, and they lay there as the city lights painted patterns across the ceiling. For the first time in weeks, Maya felt like she could breathe. But somewhere in the back of her mind, a question lingered. If Lena Shin was just the first enemy, who would come next? The answer came 2 weeks later, and it came violently. Maya had returned to work with her head high and her reputation salvaged, though the whispers hadn't entirely disappeared. They'd just changed flavor. Less malicious, more curious. People watched her and Ethan now with a kind of fascinated wariness, like they were observing something dangerous and unpredictable. In a way, they were right, where Ethan no longer hid his interest. He'd stop by her desk with coffee, his hand lingering on her shoulder just a moment too long to be professional. They'd have lunch in his office with the door open, visible to anyone who cared to look. Once, he'd picked her up after work in his car, a sleek black thing that probably cost more than most people's houses, and kissed her in full view of the lobby before driving away. The message was clear. Maya Brooks belonged to Ethan Cade, and anyone who had a problem with that could take it up with him directly. Nobody did. But Maya noticed things, small things that added up to a pattern she couldn't quite name, cars that seemed to follow the same route as her subway, a man in a coffee shop who left immediately after she did, 3 days in a row. The feeling of being watched that crawled up her spine at random moments. She mentioned it to Ethan one night over dinner at his place. He'd been teaching her to cook, or trying to anyway. Maya was discovering that following recipes was harder than following data models. You're probably just hyper-aware after everything that happened, Ethan said, though his expression had gone careful. Marcus has security watching you. That might be what you're sensing. Maybe. Maya stirred the pasta sauce that was definitely burning despite her best efforts. But it feels different, wrong. Ethan took the spoon from her hand and turned off the burner before the smoke alarm could start screaming. I'll have Marcus increase your detail. Quietly. Just in case. I don't need a babysitter. You need to be safe. He turned her to face him. After what happened with Lena, I'm not taking chances. Lena's in jail awaiting trial. Lena's father isn't, and Jonathan Shin doesn't strike me as the forgiving type. Maya had read about Jonathan Shin. He'd built Meridian Global from nothing, much like Ethan, but where Ethan's empire was built on calculated strategy, Shin's was built on ruthless aggression. He crushed competitors, destroyed anyone who stood in his way, and made enemies into examples. You think he blames me for his daughter's arrest? I think he blames me. And hurting you is the easiest way to hurt me. Ethan's jaw was tight, which is exactly why you're getting better security, whether you like it or not. They didn't fight about it, exactly, but the tension lingered through dinner and into the night. Maya knew Ethan was trying to protect her. She also knew she hated feeling like a weakness to be guarded instead of a person living her life. She fell asleep in his arms, wondering if this was what it meant to love someone like Ethan Cade. Constant vigilance, perpetual danger, never quite feeling safe. The attack came 3 days later, and it didn't come the way anyone expected. Maya was working late again, some habits were hard to break, when her computer screen flickered. Not like before, not with threatening messages. This time, everything just went dark. Then the lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in immediately, bathing the office in an eerie red glow. Maya stood up, her heart already racing. The fire alarm started blaring. Around her, the few other people still working began moving toward the exits. Standard procedure. Maya grabbed her bag and joined the flow of bodies heading for the stairwell. That's when she noticed the smoke. Real smoke, not a drill. Pouring up from somewhere below, thick and dark and choking. Move! Move! Someone shouted, and the orderly evacuation became a stampede. Maya was pushed into the stairwell, bodies pressing around her from all sides. The smoke was getting thicker, and people were coughing, panicking. Someone stumbled on the stairs ahead and nearly caused a pileup. Through the chaos, Maya felt a hand grab her arm. Hard. She turned, expecting to see a security guard or a coworker. Instead, she saw a man she didn't recognize. Mid-40s, blank expression, eyes that looked through her rather than at her. "Miss Brooks," he said calmly, as if they weren't in the middle of a building evacuation. "Come with me." "What? No, His grip tightened painfully. It wasn't a request. Maya tried to pull away, but he was stronger. He started dragging her against the flow of people, back up the stairs instead of down. Panic kicked in. Maya did the only thing she could think of. She screamed. The man's other hand clamped over her mouth, and he hauled her backward with terrifying efficiency. Around them, people were too focused on their own escape to notice one woman being dragged in the wrong direction. Maya bit down hard on his hand. He grunted but didn't let go, just adjusted his grip and kept moving. They were at the door to the 48th floor when another voice cut through the chaos. "Let her go." Marcus appeared like a shadow made solid, his weapon drawn and aimed directly at Maya's captor's head. "This doesn't concern you," the man said, still calm, still holding Maya like she weighed nothing. "Everything concerning her concerns me. Last chance. Let her go." For a moment, nobody moved. The smoke was getting thicker, the alarm still screaming, people still flooding past them down the stairs. Then the man released Maya and shoved her hard toward Marcus. She stumbled, and Marcus caught her with one arm while keeping his weapon trained. "Tell Cade that Jonathan Shin sends his regards," the man said. Then he smiled, a cold, empty expression, and disappeared into the smoke. Marcus didn't pursue. He grabbed Maya's hand and pulled her down the stairs, moving with the crowd now, his body positioned between her and everyone else. They made it outside to chaos. Fire trucks, police cars, people everywhere. The smoke was pouring from the 32nd floor. Finance, Maya's brain registered distantly. Someone had set an actual fire. Marcus pulled her away from the crowd toward a black SUV that appeared out of nowhere. He pushed her into the back seat and climbed in after her, already pulling out his phone. "We have a problem," he said to whoever answered. They tried to grab her. Maya couldn't hear Ethan's response, but she could imagine it. "I've got her. We're moving to Safe House 3. Marcus glanced at Maya. "No, she's not hurt. Shaken up, but not hurt." He listened for a moment, then, "Understood. We'll wait for you there." After he hung up, Marcus looked at Maya properly for the first time. "Are you hurt?" "No, just... What the hell was that?" That was Jonathan Shin making a move. The fire was a distraction. The evacuation was cover. They were trying to take you. "Take me where?" "Doesn't matter. We stopped it." Marcus pulled out a tablet and started typing. "But this changes things. You can't go home, can't go to work, can't be anywhere predictable until we neutralize the threat." "You mean until you find Jonathan Shin and do whatever Ethan does to people who cross him?" Marcus looked at her steadily. "Yes, that's exactly what I mean." They drove in silence to a building Maya didn't recognize in a neighborhood she couldn't place. Marcus led her inside through security that looked more like a military checkpoint than an apartment building, and into a penthouse that was clearly designed for exactly this purpose. No windows that opened. Reinforced doors, security cameras everywhere. A safe room with walls that probably could withstand a bomb. "Make yourself comfortable," Marcus said. "Ethan will be here soon." "How soon?" "Knowing him? He's probably breaking every traffic law in the city as we speak." It took 17 minutes. Maya heard him before she saw him, his voice cutting through the apartment, sharp and deadly. "Where is she?" Then he was there, crossing the room in 3 strides and pulling her against him so hard it almost hurt. "Are you okay? Are you hurt? Did he touch you?" "I'm fine." Marcus got there in time. Ethan pulled back just enough to look at her, his hands on her face, her shoulders, checking for injuries with barely controlled panic in his eyes. Define in time. "He grabbed me. Tried to take me up instead of down. Said to tell you that Jonathan Shin sends his regards." Maya's voice was steadier than she felt. But Marcus stopped him before anything worse happened. Ethan's expression went absolutely cold. He released Maya and turned to Marcus, and when he spoke, his voice was devoid of all emotion. "Tell me everything." Marcus laid out the situation with military precision. The fire had been deliberately set. The security systems had been compromised from the outside. The man who'd grabbed Maya had vanished. Literally. No trace on any security camera after he'd left the stairwell. Professional, Marcus concluded. Former military, probably special forces. The kind of operative you hire when you want something done quietly and efficiently. Shin hired him. Almost certainly. The message was clear. Then we send a clearer one. Ethan's voice was quiet, and somehow that made it more terrifying. I want everything, every asset Shin has, every connection, every weak point. I want his company dissected. I want his allies identified and isolated. I want him to wake up tomorrow and realize his entire world is collapsing. Ethan, Maya said quietly. He looked at her, and the rage in his eyes was barely controlled. They tried to take you. They set a building on fire, my building, and tried to kidnap you in the chaos. You could have died in that stairwell. You could have... He stopped, breathing hard. I'm going to destroy him. I know, but come here first. Ethan crossed to her, and Maya took his hands in hers. I'm okay. I'm right here. I'm safe. This time, his hands tightened on hers. What about next time? What happens when they try again with better planning and more resources? What happens when I'm not fast enough or smart enough or... Stop. Maya pulled him closer. You can't control everything. You can't protect me from every possible threat. Watch me. Ethan. No? He cupped her face, and his eyes were blazing. You don't understand. You're the only thing in my life that matters. The only person who makes me feel human instead of a machine built for acquiring power. If something happened to you because of me, because of who I am and the enemies I've made, I would burn the entire world down, and it still wouldn't be enough. Maya's breath caught. She'd known he cared, but hearing the raw desperation in his voice was something else entirely. Then let me help, she said. Stop treating me like something fragile that needs to be locked away. Let me be part of this. Part of what? A war with one of the most dangerous men in the city? Yes, if that's what it takes. Ethan stared at her. You have no idea what you're saying. Don't I? Maya stepped back, needing space to think. Lena came after me. Her father just tried to have me kidnapped. I'm already in this war, Ethan. The only question is whether I fight or hide. I want you to be safe. And I want to live my life. Not in a bunker, not surrounded by bodyguards, not constantly looking over my shoulder waiting for the next attack. She met his eyes. Help me fight back. Teach me how to survive in your world instead of just trying to shield me from it. Marcus, who'd been watching this exchange with careful attention, spoke up. She has a point. Ethan shot him a look that could have melted steel. I'm serious, Marcus continued. You can't protect her 24/7, but you can prepare her. Teach her what to watch for, how to respond, who to trust. Make her a harder target. She shouldn't have to be a target at all. But she is, Maya said quietly. Because of me as much as you, because I chose this, because I'm not backing down. She moved closer to Ethan again. So stop trying to fight this battle alone. We're partners, remember? Equals. Ethan was quiet for a long moment, the war visible on his face. Finally, he said, Okay, we do this together, but you follow my lead on security. No arguments. I can live with that. And you stay here until we've dealt with the immediate threat. How long? As long as it takes. Maya wanted to argue, but the look in Ethan's eyes stopped her. This was his line in the sand. If she pushed, he'd push back harder. Fine, but you stay too. Something shifted in his expression. Maya, you said we're in this together. That means you don't get to go off and wage war while I sit here waiting. If I have to hide, you hide with me, at least at night. Marcus made a sound that might have been a laugh. She's got you there. Ethan looked between them, then sighed. Fine. I'll work from here when possible. Deal. After Marcus left to coordinate whatever came next in Ethan's war against Jonathan Shin, Maya and Ethan were finally alone. The adrenaline was starting to fade, leaving Maya shaky and exhausted. She sat down on the couch, and Ethan sat beside her, pulling her against his side. I was terrified, he said quietly. When Marcus called, when he said someone had grabbed you, He stopped, breathing carefully. I've never been that scared in my life. I was pretty scared too, Maya admitted. That man, the way he looked at me like I was just an object to be moved, it was, you don't have to talk about it. Yes, I do. If I don't, I'll just keep seeing it every time I close my eyes. She turned to look at him. He was so calm, like kidnapping someone was just another Tuesday for him. He was a professional. They're trained to stay detached. Have you ever... Maya stopped, not sure she wanted to know the answer. Have I ever what? done things like that. Hired people to hurt someone or take someone or... Ethan was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was careful. I've done things I'm not proud of. Crossed lines that most people don't even know exist. I've ruined careers, destroyed companies, made people disappear from positions of power. He paused. But I've never hurt anyone who didn't strike first. Never went after someone innocent, and I've never ever used violence as a first resort. But you've used it. Yes, Maya absorbed that. She'd known, theoretically, that Ethan was dangerous. But hearing him confirm it was different. Does that change how you see me? He asked. I don't know. Maybe. Ask me again when my brain isn't still stuck in that stairwell. Fair enough. They sat in silence for a while, just breathing together. Finally, Maya said, What are you going to do to Jonathan Shin? Whatever it takes to make sure he never comes near you again. That's not an answer. Ethan looked at her and his eyes were cold. I'm going to dismantle everything he's built, piece by piece, starting with the people who helped him tonight and working my way up until he has nothing left but the realization that he made a fatal mistake when he decided you were an acceptable target. Will you kill him? Do you want me to? The question caught her off guard. No, I don't think so, but I don't know. Then I won't. Unless he forces my hand. Ethan pulled her closer. But I will make sure he can never threaten you again. That's non-negotiable. Maya nodded against his chest, too tired to argue or analyze or do anything but exist in this moment. I need to sleep, she said. Everything else can wait until tomorrow. Ethan carried her to the bedroom, an unnecessary gesture, but Maya didn't complain, and they lay down together fully clothed. As she drifted off, she heard him whisper, I love you. She was asleep before she could respond, but in her dreams she said it back. The next morning, Maya woke to an empty bed and the sound of Ethan's voice coming from the other room. She got up, pulled on one of his shirts that was hanging in the closet, and patted out to find him on the phone. I don't care if it's aggressive, he was saying. I want the Meridian contracts examined for any possible violations. Environmental, labor, safety, everything. And I want it done yesterday. He saw Maya and held up a finger. 1 minute. No, I'm not overreacting. Someone tried to kidnap my... He stopped, glancing at Maya. Someone important to me. So yes, I want every resource we have focused on this. Call me when you have something. He hung up and immediately crossed to her, kissing her forehead. How are you feeling? Like I got hit by a truck. How long have you been up? A few hours? I wanted to let you sleep. While you started your crusade against Jonathan Shin. While I took necessary defensive measures, Ethan corrected, there's a difference. Is there? To me, yes. He guided her toward the kitchen, where someone had apparently delivered breakfast. Coffee? Please. They ate in relative silence, Maya still waking up, Ethan clearly already 10 steps ahead in whatever plan he was executing. Finally, Maya asked, What happens now? I can't stay locked in here forever. Not forever, just until the threat is neutralized. And how long will that take? Depends on how quickly Shin realizes he's losing. Maya set down her coffee. You're really going to destroy his company. I'm going to remove his ability to hurt you. If that means destroying his company, then yes. Even though it'll hurt innocent people? Employees who did nothing wrong? Ethan's expression hardened. He should have thought about that before he came after you. Ethan? No, Maya, I know you want to see the good in people, want to believe there's a better way. But in my world, when someone draws a line, you either erase them or they erase you. There's no middle ground. That's not true, isn't it? Lena tried to destroy your reputation. Her father tried to kidnap you. At what point do you accept that some people only understand power and consequences? Maya wanted to argue, wanted to say there had to be another way. But she kept seeing that man's blank eyes, kept feeling his hand clamped over her mouth, kept hearing him say that it wasn't a request. Okay, she said finally. Do what you need to do, but promise me something. What? Promise me you won't become the thing you're fighting against. Don't let destroying him destroy you too. Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Then he took her hand, threading their fingers together. I promise I'll try. That's the best I can offer. It's enough. The next week passed in a strange bubble. Maya stayed in the safe house, working remotely and trying not to go insane from the confinement. Ethan came and went, sometimes for hours, sometimes for days, always returning with updates that sounded like military reports. The investigation into the fire revealed code violations in 3 Meridian properties. They're facing fines and potential shutdowns. Shin's primary investor pulled out of a major deal, something about concerns over leadership stability. 2 of his board members resigned today. No explanation given, but I'm guessing they received information that made staying untenable. Each update was another piece of Jonathan Shin's empire crumbling. Maya should have felt vindicated. Instead, she just felt tired. On the 8th day, Ethan came home looking grimmer than usual. What happened? Maya asked immediately. Shin reached out, wants to negotiate. Negotiate what? A ceasefire. He backs off, I back off, everyone walks away. Maya's heart leaped. That's good, right? That means it's over. It means he's realized he's losing and wants to cut his losses. Ethan sat down heavily. But it doesn't mean it's over. It just means he'll be more careful next time. So don't give him a next time. Accept the ceasefire. Let it end. And if he breaks it, if he waits 6 months or a year and tries again when my guard is down, then we deal with it then. But Ethan, you've made your point. He knows not to mess with you. Isn't that enough? Ethan looked at her for a long time. You really want me to stop? I want this to be over. I want to go back to work, go home, live my life without feeling like I'm in witness protection. She moved closer to him. You won, you've won. He's broken. His company's in shambles. Everyone knows what happens when someone crosses Ethan Cade. Finishing him off now is just cruelty. He tried to take you. I know, and I'll never forget that. But I also don't want to spend the rest of my life watching you turn into someone who can't stop fighting, even when the war is over. Ethan pulled her into his lap, holding her like she might disappear. You make me better, he said quietly. And worse. Better because you remind me there's more to life than power and control. Worse because you make me willing to do terrible things to keep you safe. Then let me keep you from doing those terrible things. Accept the ceasefire. Let it end. On one condition. What? Shin makes a public statement, takes responsibility for what happened, acknowledges that you were an innocent target and clears your name completely. Maya blinked. You think he'll do that? For the right incentive, yes. I'll offer to halt the dismantling of his company if he gives you a full public exoneration. You'd do that after everything? I'd do anything for you. He said it simply, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Even make peace with someone I'd rather destroy. 2 days later, Jonathan Shin appeared at a press conference looking 10 years older than his last public appearance. He read a statement that his lawyers had clearly written, but Ethan had definitely approved, taking full responsibility for the attacks on Maya and the Cade Industries building. Miss Brooks was an innocent party who became a target solely due to my misguided attempts to retaliate against Ethan Cade for my daughter's legal troubles. I deeply regret the harm caused to her reputation and her safety. She is a talented professional who earned her position through merit, and I hope this statement helps restore what my actions damaged. It was humiliating for him, vindicating for Maya, and exactly the kind of power move that Ethan excelled at, making his enemy submit publicly while looking magnanimous for accepting the apology. When it was over, Maya was finally free to go home. She and Ethan stood in her apartment, her actual, familiar, slightly shabby apartment, and she felt like she could breathe fully for the first time in weeks. It's really over? She asked. For now. Ethan pulled her close. But Maya, you need to understand something. Being with me means there will always be threats. Always be people who see you as leverage or a weakness. This won't be the last time. I know. And you're still choosing this? Choosing me? Maya looked up at him, at this complicated, dangerous, impossible man who'd turned her life upside down. Yeah, she said. I'm still choosing you. He kissed her then, soft and deep, and full of promises neither of them could guarantee, but both of them meant anyway. Outside, the city continued its endless rhythm. Somewhere, enemies plotted and allies schemed, and the game of power continued its eternal dance. But in that moment, in that small apartment that smelled like Thai food and ambition, 2 people who'd learned to survive alone figured out how to be together. And that felt like its own kind of victory. Life didn't return to normal, because normal had never existed in the first place. Maya went back to work the following Monday, and the stares were different now. Not hostile, not even particularly curious. More like respectful wariness, the way people looked at someone who'd survived something they couldn't imagine surviving themselves. Jennifer pulled her aside first thing. You don't have to be here yet. HR approved extended leave if you need it. I need to work, Maya said honestly. Sitting around thinking about what happened doesn't help. Jennifer studied her for a moment, then nodded. Okay, but my door is always open, for work or otherwise. It was the closest thing to kindness the usually stern supervisor had ever offered, and Maya felt unexpectedly grateful. The work helped. Numbers and projections and market analysis were predictable, controllable. They made sense in a way that the rest of her life currently didn't. But even immersed in spreadsheets, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that something had fundamentally shifted. Not just in her relationship with Ethan, but in herself. She'd always been driven, always pushed herself to prove she belonged. But now there was an edge to it, a hardness that hadn't been there before. She found herself evaluating people differently, not just their competence, but their potential threat level. Found herself checking exits in every room, noting who stood too close or watched too long. You're different, Zoe observed one night over wine that had upgraded from cheap to mid-range now that Maya's salary could afford it. Not bad different, just harder. I got attacked and almost kidnapped. That changes a person. I know, but it's more than that. Zoe poured them both another glass. You move differently now, like you're always ready for something to go wrong. Maya wanted to deny it, but Zoe was right. Ethan's been teaching me things. How to read situations, how to defend myself, how to disappear if I need to. He's turning you into a mini version of himself. No, he's teaching me how to survive in his world. Maya swirled her wine. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I'm sitting, you're changing to fit his life instead of him changing to fit yours. The observation stung because it held truth. What am I supposed to do? Pretend I don't need those skills? Pretend people aren't going to keep coming after me because of who I'm with? No, but you could also ask yourself if being with someone who requires you to learn combat skills and escape routes is really what you want for your life. Maya set down her glass. You don't like him. I don't know him well enough to like or dislike him, but I know you. And the woman sitting across from me right now, constantly checking the door, analyzing everyone who walks by, living in a state of permanent vigilance, that's not the Maya I've known for 8 years. Maybe that Maya was naive. Maybe she needed to grow up and see the world as it really is. Or maybe, Zoe said gently, she's confusing survival mode with normal life. There's a difference between being aware and being paranoid. They didn't fight, but the conversation left a residue Maya couldn't shake. That night, lying in Ethan's arms in his penthouse, she asked, Am I changing too much? Ethan had been half asleep, but the question brought him fully awake. What do you mean? Zoe says I'm different, harder, that I'm turning into you. And you think that's a bad thing? I don't know. Is it? Ethan was quiet for a moment, his fingers tracing absent patterns on her shoulder. When I was younger, I thought strength meant never showing weakness, never letting anyone close enough to hurt you. I built my entire life around that principle. He paused. And I was miserable. Successful, powerful, respected, and completely alone. Until me. Until you. He shifted so he could see her face. You made me realize that real strength isn't about walls and isolation. It's about choosing vulnerability despite the risk, about letting someone in even when it terrifies you. So I shouldn't be learning to protect myself? No, you absolutely should. The world we live in is dangerous, and being prepared isn't the same as being paranoid. He cupped her face. But don't lose yourself in the process. Don't become so focused on surviving that you forget what you're surviving for. And what am I surviving for? The life we're building. The future where we don't have to constantly look over our shoulders. The possibility that maybe, eventually, we get to just be two people who love each other without all the complications. Maya kissed him, slow and deep. You really think that's possible? I think it's worth fighting for. They made love then, tender and unhurried, and afterward Maya lay awake thinking about futures and possibilities and the difference between becoming stronger and becoming someone else entirely. The answer came to her somewhere around 3 in the morning. She could learn Ethan's lessons without losing herself, could be prepared without being paranoid, could adapt to his world while still holding on to the parts of herself that had made him fall for her in the first place. It was a balance, like everything else in this impossible relationship. The real test came 6 weeks later. Maya was in a meeting with the executive team. She'd been promoted again, this time to senior analyst with a seat in strategy discussions, when David burst in looking pale. I'm sorry to interrupt, but we have a situation. Everyone looked at Ethan, who'd been leading the meeting. His expression went carefully blank. What kind of situation? The kind that requires immediate attention, sir? The emphasis on that last word made Maya's stomach drop. Whatever this was, it was bad. Ethan stood smoothly. We'll reconvene this afternoon. David, with me. Maya. He caught himself, glancing at the other executives watching with sharp interest. Miss Brooks, I'll need your analysis on the Harmon project by end of day. It was so perfectly professional that no one would suspect anything. But Maya saw the tension in his shoulders, the way his hand flexed once before he controlled it. Something was very, very wrong. She waited exactly 10 minutes after the meeting dispersed before following the path she knew Ethan would have taken. Not to his office, too obvious. To the secure conference room 3 floors up that didn't appear on any building directory. Marcus was standing outside like a sentinel. He saw Maya approaching and shook his head. Not now. What's happening? Something you don't need to be involved in. Marcus? Maya stopped directly in front of him. I'm already involved. I have been since the moment Ethan promoted me. So either tell me what's going on or let me in there to find out myself. Marcus studied her for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he stepped aside. Your funeral. Maya opened the door to find Ethan, David, and 2 people she didn't recognize hunched over a laptop. The screen showed what looked like financial records, and everyone's faces were grim. Ethan looked up, and his expression cycled through surprise, frustration, and resignation in quick succession. Maya, you shouldn't be here. Probably not, but I am. She closed the door behind her. What's wrong? The 2 strangers looked at Ethan questioningly. He sighed. Maya Brooks, this is Rachel Kim and Thomas Wade from our forensic accounting team. To Rachel and Thomas, she's cleared. You can speak freely. Rachel pulled up a different screen. We've been conducting routine audits of all major transactions, and we found something. Someone's been siphoning money from Cade Industries for the past 14 months. Small amounts, routed through shell companies and offshore accounts, but it adds up to approximately $47 million. Maya's breath caught. Embezzlement. Worse, Thomas said. Whoever's doing this has access to executive-level accounts. They know our security protocols, our audit schedules, everything. This is an inside job. How inside? Maya asked. Ethan's expression was carved from ice. Senior management or above. That's a list of exactly 12 people. 11, David corrected quietly. You're on that list too, but obviously 11 then. Ethan's jaw was tight. One of my most trusted people has been stealing from me for over a year. The question is who? Maya's analyst brain kicked in immediately. Can I see the transaction patterns? Rachel hesitated, looking at Ethan. He nodded and she pulled up the data. Maya studied it for several minutes, her mind cataloging patterns and anomalies. There. See how the transfers spike right after quarterly reports? And how they're always routed through Asian markets first before bouncing to the Caribbean? So? Thomas asked. So whoever's doing this has access to quarterly numbers before they're released, and they're using time zone differences to obscure the paper trail. That narrows your suspect pool to people involved in financial reporting. She looked at Ethan. How many of your 11 senior managers are directly involved in quarterly reports? 4. CFO, controller, head of finance, and VP of strategic planning. Jennifer, Maya said, and her heart sank. Ethan's expression confirmed her fear. It's not confirmed. We need more evidence. But over the next 3 hours of digging, the evidence became undeniable. Jennifer Maris, Maya's supervisor and mentor, the woman who'd defended her and taught her and made her better. She'd been systematically stealing from Cade Industries for over a year. Why? Maya asked when they finally had enough proof to be certain. She makes excellent money. She's respected. Why risk everything? Gambling debts, Rachel said, pulling up another file. She's been using offshore casinos, lost nearly $60 million in the past 2 years. The embezzlement was probably meant to cover her losses before anyone noticed. Maya felt sick. She'd trusted Jennifer, had looked up to her, and the entire time Jennifer had been a thief. What happens now? She asked. Ethan's expression was cold. Now I have Marcus escort her out and hand everything over to the authorities. She'll be arrested, prosecuted, and spend the next decade in prison if the DA does their job. She helped me, Maya said quietly. When everyone else was convinced I'd slept my way to the top, she defended me. She made me better at my job. She also stole $47 million, Ethan's voice was hard. Whatever good she did doesn't erase that. I know. I just... Maya stopped, not sure what she was trying to say. Ethan's expression softened slightly. You can care about someone and still hold them accountable. The two aren't mutually exclusive. Feels like they should be mutually exclusive right now. Welcome to the complicated reality of running an empire. He stood, signaling the end of the meeting. Rachel, Thomas, compile everything for legal. David, arrange for the authorities to be here in 2 hours. I want this handled quickly and by the book. No room for her lawyers to claim impropriety. Everyone scattered to their tasks, leaving Maya alone with Ethan. I'm sorry, he said. I know she meant something to you. She was one of the few people who treated me like I deserved to be here. Maya's voice cracked slightly. And the whole time she was a criminal. People are complicated. They can be kind and cruel, helpful and harmful, often simultaneously. He pulled her into his arms. That's the hardest lesson of all. That very few people are entirely good or entirely bad. Most of us exist in the gray areas, doing the best we can and sometimes failing spectacularly. Maya held on to him, taking comfort in his solid presence. Is that how you see yourself? Gray? I see myself as someone who's done terrible things for what I believed were good reasons. Whether that makes me gray or just good at justifying my choices, I honestly don't know. But you keep trying to be better. Because of you. Before you, I didn't care about being better. I just cared about being successful. He pulled back to look at her. You changed that. Changed me. They stood there for a moment, two imperfect people trying to figure out how to be good together. Then Ethan's phone rang, and reality crashed back in. Watching Jennifer be let out of the building in handcuffs 2 hours later was one of the hardest things Maya had ever done. Jennifer saw her standing there, and something complicated flickered across her face. Shame, defiance, regret, anger, all mixed together. I'm sorry, Jennifer said as she passed. For what it's worth, you really did earn your place here. That part was real. Then she was gone, and Maya was left standing in the lobby, feeling like the ground had shifted beneath her feet again. That night, she and Ethan sat on his balcony overlooking the city, both too wired to sleep. Does it ever get easier? Maya asked. Watching people you trusted betray you? No, you just get better at expecting it. Ethan took a drink of whatever expensive whiskey he'd poured. That's the loneliness of power. The higher you climb, the more people have reasons to want what you have, and sometimes those people are the ones closest to you. That's a depressing worldview. It's a realistic one. Maybe. Or maybe it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You expect betrayal, so you see it everywhere, even in people who are genuinely loyal. Ethan was quiet for a moment. You think I'm too cynical. I think you're scarred, and I understand why. But I also think constantly waiting for betrayal is no way to live. What's the alternative? Blind trust? No, smart trust. Being aware without being paranoid. Preparing for the worst while hoping for the best. She took his hand. Living like every person in your life is a potential enemy is exhausting. At some point, you have to decide who's worth the risk of trusting. I trust you. I know. But I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about everyone else. Marcus, David, the people who've worked for you for years without giving you reason to doubt them. At some point, you have to let yourself believe that maybe, just maybe, some people are exactly who they seem to be. Ethan pulled her closer, tucking her against his side. You make it sound simple. It's not simple, but it's necessary. Because the alternative is spending your whole life alone at the top, surrounded by people you can never fully trust, and that's not living. That's just existing. They sat in silence for a while, watching the city lights. Finally, Ethan said, I'll try. To be less cynical, to trust more. But you have to promise me something in return. What? Don't let my world make you as hard as it made me. Don't lose the part of yourself that still believes people are fundamentally good. Because that's what I love most about you. You've seen the worst of what people can do, and you still choose hope. Maya kissed him, tasting whiskey and truth. Deal. You work on trusting more. I'll work on not losing my optimism. We'll meet somewhere in the middle. The middle sounds good. The weeks that followed were strange. Jennifer's arrest made headlines, and Maya found herself fielding questions from reporters she'd learned to ignore. The department was in chaos, reorganizing under new leadership while everyone processed the betrayal. But something unexpected happened. Without Jennifer's complicated presence, Without the shadow of suspicion hanging over her relationship with Ethan, Maya found herself settling into her role with new confidence. She wasn't the intern who'd lucked into a promotion anymore. She was a senior analyst who'd proven herself through multiple crises and come out stronger. The whispers finally, truly stopped. People sought her out for advice on projects. Junior analysts looked to her as a mentor. Even the executives who'd once dismissed her started taking her recommendations seriously. 3 months after Jennifer's arrest, Ethan called her into his office for a meeting that felt oddly formal. "Sit," he said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. Maya sat, curious. They usually didn't do the formal office thing anymore. Their relationship was public knowledge, accepted if not exactly celebrated, and they'd found a balance between professional and personal that worked. "I have an offer for you," Ethan said, and his tone was pure business. Head of strategic planning, Jennifer's old position, but with expanded responsibilities and a seat on the executive board. Maya's breath caught. That's a huge promotion. It's a recognition of your abilities. You've proven yourself capable not just of analysis, but of leadership. The department respects you, I respect you, and frankly, you're the best person for the job. People will talk. People always talk. But they'll be wrong, and we both know it. You've earned this 10 times over. He leaned forward. But I need you to understand something. If you take this position, it changes our dynamic. You'll be on the executive board, which means you'll be privy to information and decisions that affect the entire company. That's a level of responsibility and scrutiny that will be intense. Are you trying to talk me out of it? I'm making sure you know what you're saying yes to. Because once you're on the board, you're not just my girlfriend who works for the company. You're a key decision maker in one of the most powerful corporations in the city. That target on your back? It gets bigger. Maya thought about it. Thought about everything she'd survived to get here. The whispers, the attacks, the betrayals, the fear. And she thought about the promise she'd made to her mother, to be bigger than her fear, to take every opportunity, fight for every chance, never settle for safe when she could have extraordinary. "I accept," she said. Ethan smiled, and it was proud and relieved and something deeper she couldn't quite name. "I was hoping you'd say that." "Were you?" "You've been ready for this role for months. I was just waiting for you to see it too." The announcement was made the next day, and to Maya's surprise, the reaction was mostly positive. A few people grumbled about nepotism, but even they couldn't deny that Maya had proven herself capable. Her first board meeting was terrifying. She sat at that massive table with executives who'd been playing this game since before she was born, and she contributed to decisions that would affect thousands of people. But she held her own, presented her ideas clearly, defended her positions confidently, and by the end of the meeting, she'd earned nods of approval from even the skeptics. Afterward, Ethan caught her in the hallway. "You were brilliant. I was terrified." "Didn't show. You commanded that room like you'd been doing it for years." Maya felt a surge of pride that was entirely her own. Not pride in being Ethan Cade's girlfriend, but pride in being Maya Brooks, the woman who'd come from nothing and built something real through talent and determination. "Thank you," she said, "for seeing what I could be before I saw it myself. Thank you for proving me right." That night, they celebrated in his penthouse with expensive wine and takeout from the Thai place near Maya's old apartment. "We should talk about the future," Ethan said as they ate. "What about it?" "Where you see this going. Us, I mean, because we can't keep living in separate places forever. And at some point, we need to make decisions about what we're building." Maya set down her food. This was the conversation she'd been both hoping for and dreading. "What do you want?" she asked. "I want you to move in here. I want to wake up next to you every morning and come home to you every night. I want to stop treating this like a temporary situation and start building something permanent." "And marriage?" Maya asked, her heart pounding. "Eventually, if that's what you want. But I'm not proposing right now. We've been through too much too fast, and I want us to have time to just be together without crisis and chaos." He took her hand. "I just want you to know that this is real for me. You're not a phase or a distraction. You're it." Maya felt tears prick her eyes. "You're it for me too. So move in with me, officially. Bring your terrible furniture and your weird coffee preferences and all the things that make this place feel less like a museum and more like a home." "My furniture isn't terrible. Your couch is held together with duct tape. It has character. It has structural problems." Maya laughed, and it felt good, easy, normal. "Okay, yes, I'll move in." They sealed it with a kiss that tasted like Thai food and promises. The move happened gradually over the next month. Maya brought her books, her plants, her collection of vintage mugs that Ethan pretended to hate, but she caught him using. She took over half his closet and reorganized his kitchen to make actual sense. Slowly, his pristine penthouse became their home. And something shifted in both of them. Ethan smiled more, laughed easier, started taking weekends off to just be with her. No work talk, no crisis management. He was learning, Maya realized, how to be a person instead of just a CEO. And Maya found herself relaxing. The hypervigilance faded, replaced by a more balanced awareness. She stopped checking every exit, stopped analyzing every stranger. She started trusting that maybe, just maybe, she could let her guard down. They weren't perfect. They fought sometimes. About work, about boundaries, about Ethan's tendency to solve problems with overwhelming force, and Maya's tendency to give people more chances than they deserved. But they always came back to each other. Always found the middle ground where his cynicism and her optimism balanced into something workable. 6 months after Maya moved in, they were having breakfast on the balcony when Ethan's phone rang. He glanced at it and smiled. "It's Marcus. Hold on." He answered, listened for a moment, and his smile grew. "Good. Make sure it's documented properly. Thanks." He hung up and looked at Maya with satisfaction. That was about the Shin situation. Jonathan Shin just filed for bankruptcy. Meridian Global is being dissolved and sold off in pieces. Maya processed that. So it's really over. Completely. Completely. He has no power, no resources, no ability to threaten us anymore. Ethan paused. "You were right, by the way, about accepting the ceasefire when I did. If I'd kept pushing back then, this would have gotten uglier, but stepping back and letting his own poor decisions destroy him was smarter. You're admitting I was right about something? Don't let it go to your head." She grinned and kissed him. Too late. But privately, she felt the last piece of tension she'd been carrying finally release. It was really, truly over. The threats, the attacks, the constant looking over her shoulder. They were safe as anyone could be in their world. That night, lying in bed with Ethan's arms around her, Maya thought about everything that had happened since the day she'd crashed into him with an armful of papers. She'd been terrified that day. Exhausted, overwhelmed, running on coffee and determination. She'd looked into the eyes of Manhattan's most feared CEO and felt annoyance instead of terror. And that moment had changed everything. "What are you thinking about?" Ethan asked, his voice sleepy. "How different my life is now. How different I am." "Regrets? No. Not even a little bit." She turned to face him in the darkness. "Do you remember what you told me that first night we were together? That you'd never felt this way about anyone?" "I remember." "I didn't believe you then. Thought you were just saying what I wanted to hear, but I believe you now." "What changed?" "I saw you change. Saw you let me in even when it scared you. Saw you try to be better, even when being ruthless would have been easier." She touched his face, feeling the slight stubble there. "You're not the same man you were 8 months ago. Neither are you the same woman." "No, but we changed together. That's the important part." She kissed him softly. "We made each other better." "You made me better. I just taught you to survive." "You taught me to be strong." "There's a difference." Ethan pulled her closer and they lay there in comfortable silence. Finally, he said, "I love you. I don't say it enough, but I do. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. Even though I crashed into you and ruined your expensive shoes, especially because of that. You came into my life like a hurricane and destroyed every wall I'd spent years building, and I've never been happier." Maya felt tears prick her eyes. "I love you too, even though you're dramatic and overprotective and occasionally terrifying." "Occasionally?" "Okay, frequently, but I love that about you too." They fell asleep wrapped around each other, two people who'd found something neither had been looking for but both desperately needed. The next morning, Maya woke to find Ethan already up, standing at the window looking out over the city the way he always did. She joined him, tucking herself against his side. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "Everything we've built. Everything we still have to build. The future." Sounds heavy for a Saturday morning. "I've been thinking about something." He turned to face her fully. "I want to start a foundation, using my resources to actually help people instead of just accumulating more power." Maya blinked in surprise. "Really? You once told me that my world was wrong, that measuring everything in power and control was missing the point. I think you were right. I want to do something that matters beyond the next acquisition or the next billion. What kind of foundation? Education, primarily. Scholarships for kids like I was, foster kids, kids from nothing, kids who have potential but no resources. Give them the chances I had to fight for. He looked almost vulnerable. What do you think? I think that's the best idea you've ever had. Maya felt pride swell in her chest. And I think your younger self would be proud. Will you help me build it? Of course. We're partners, remember? Partners, Ethan repeated like he was testing the word. I like that. They spent the rest of the morning planning, and by the end of it, they had the rough framework for something that could change lives. It wasn't enough to erase Ethan's past or absolve him of the ruthless things he'd done. But it was a start, a way of using power for something beyond just accumulating more of it. Over the following months, the foundation took shape. They hired staff, established criteria, set up endowments, and when they announced the first scholarship recipients, 20 kids from circumstances similar to what Ethan had survived, Maya saw something in his expression she'd never seen before. Peace. Like he'd finally found a way to reconcile who he was with who he wanted to be. The announcement made news, and public opinion of Ethan Cade shifted slightly. He was still feared and respected, still known as ruthless and dangerous. But now there was another dimension to him, a recognition that even the coldest men could choose warmth. A year after that first collision in the lobby, Maya stood at a podium announcing the second round of scholarships, 50 this time, with plans to expand every year. She looked out at the audience and saw Ethan standing in the back, watching her with undisguised pride. And she realized something. They'd done it, built something real out of the chaos, created a life that balanced power with purpose, success with meaning. It wasn't perfect. They still faced challenges, still dealt with enemies and complications, and the messy reality of living in a world that wasn't always kind. But they faced it together. After the announcement, they went home to their penthouse. Not his penthouse anymore, but theirs. They cooked dinner together, a skill they'd both improved at considerably. They talked about work and plans and the documentary they'd been watching. Normal things, beautiful things. Later, lying in bed, Maya said, "Do you ever think about how different things would be if I'd been watching where I was going that day?" "Every day." And I'm grateful you weren't. Grateful for every coincidence and accident and impossible moment that led us here. He kissed her forehead. "I spent my whole life building walls and accumulating power, thinking that was what strength looked like. And then you walked in, crashed in, really, and showed me that real strength is letting someone see you, really see you, flaws and fears and all, and choosing to be vulnerable anyway. That's very philosophical for someone who once told me he doesn't believe in accidents. I don't. I believe in fate. And fate brought me you." Maya smiled against his chest. "You know what I think?" "What?" "I think we saved each other. You taught me to be strong. I taught you to be human. You showed me a world beyond what I thought was possible. I showed you a life beyond power and control. So we're even? We're partners. There's no keeping score." Ethan laughed, and it was warm and genuine and entirely unguarded. "How did I get so lucky?" "You didn't. You earned it. By being brave enough to let someone in." She looked up at him. "By choosing love over fear. By becoming the man you are instead of staying the man you were. Same goes for you." They kissed, and it was sweet and slow and full of promises they'd already started keeping. Outside, the city continued its endless rhythm. Power shifted. Empires rose and fell. People fought and loved and struggled and survived. But in that penthouse high above it all, two people who'd learned to survive alone had built something better together. And that was the real victory. Not the power or the success or the money or the status, but the simple, extraordinary fact that they'd found each other in a city of millions. That they'd chosen each other despite every reason not to. That they'd built a life that balanced strength with softness, ambition with love, individual identity with partnership. Maya Brooks had come to New York with nothing but determination and a dream of being extraordinary. She'd found something better. She'd found herself. She'd found purpose. She'd found love with a man who'd taught her that strength and vulnerability weren't opposites but complements. And Ethan Cade, the man who'd spent decades building walls and accumulating power, had learned that the greatest strength of all was letting someone in. That being seen, truly seen by another person, wasn't weakness, but courage. They'd both changed, both grown, both become better versions of themselves by reflecting the best parts of each other. And as they fell asleep wrapped around each other, the city lights painting patterns across the ceiling, they both knew the same truth. This was just the beginning. Not of their story that had been written in collisions and coffee and late-night conversations and choosing each other again and again despite every obstacle, but the beginning of everything that came after, the life they'd build together, the foundation they'd grow, the love they'd nurture through whatever challenges came next. Because that was the real lesson neither of them had expected to learn. Power wasn't about control. It was about choice. And every day, they chose each other. That was the greatest power of all.